People line up in front of his castle. Succubi are serving him. A simple ring from his inventory can be sold for billions in the real world. He can also open his inventory anytime. Pull out SS tier items like it's nothing. He even has an invisibility cloak just like Harry Potter. He's an idol for being the strongest and the only one to reach the max level. After 22 years in that world, even the succubus castle, which multiple guilds together couldn't take, he took it and enslaved the former owner all by himself. It all started when, on some random day, 1.2 million people disappeared. Everyone who was playing Eternal World. And at the same time, monsters appeared. The President of the United States thought they were aliens. Donald Trump, is that you?
He wouldn't want, quote.
Humans couldn't handle it, until suddenly the humans who disappeared started coming back. First time I've ever seen a dad go out to buy cigarettes and come back. They were inside an RPG game, where they could level up and get stronger. 1 month in real life was the same as 1 year in the game. The players who returned had died in the game. When it hit 2 months after the humans disappeared, the second wave of humans showed up. The ones who had 2 years in the game. After 3 months, the second wave came back. The ones who had 3 years in the game. Pretty soon there were players with 6 years and 8 years in that world. But as they came back, the monsters also got stronger. Now a level 150 monster called Drain had appeared. He looked to the side in panic. A single man was walking toward him. So he attacked, but it was already too late. The whole place suddenly exploded. The monster had been taken out with a single blow. That's because the 22nd year player had returned. The masked monarch. He was the one who killed all the lords and reached the Demon King's castle alone. He even killed the Demon King. No, it was just an illusion. The Demon King mocked him. He didn't realize it was an illusion even though he was the strongest human. That made him furious. But it was already too late for him. Even so, the Demon King said he completely exceeded his expectations, and he couldn't wait to have more fun with the kid. The masked one just begged him to kill him, but he was left alone in that place. That's when everything started to crumble, and the system allowed him to return, because he had launched an attack on the Demon King's castle. He also came back with the inventory as a reward, meaning he was the only one who didn't die in the game, and still came back with items from that world. The strongest man in the world returned. He immediately went to a building and rang the doorbell. In Eternal World, he always stuck together with his brother named Yoon Sang-min. But when they went to face the level 81 boss Begun, his brother got caught and killed right in front of him. Now he was at the building where he lived. When the door opened, his brother was really there, and recognized him. Sang-min thinks he came back after the masked player killed the game's final boss. At least that's what the leader of the Absolute Guild said. But we know it wasn't really like that. He'd actually fallen for a trick by the Demon King. Right now, stronger monsters are showing up, and high-level dungeons too. Suddenly Sang-min asks what level his brother Sang-hyuk is, and he asks why. Is it because you want to recruit him to the guild you're in? But when he hears the name of the Balhai Guild, our hero gets furious. Balhai was the guild that, because they were the highest level, killed weak players and enslaved them. Hyuk himself was the one who wiped them out with his own hands in the game. Sang-min seemed happy to be in it, but Hyuk orders him to leave the guild. He says trash will always be trash, so he wants him out. The kid looks kind of confused, and even asks why he's so confident now, and it's simply because he's at the max level. The kid thought Richard Polson was the highest level that existed, being level 228. How could that be possible? And it's possible because he himself is the masked monarch. He stopped gaining experience after reaching level 300. Only then did the kid understand it was him who wiped out the Balhai Guild. Sang-min asks how he can open the inventory, and Hyuk explains that he got it as a reward. Does that mean he really killed the Demon King? Yes, he killed him, but it wasn't quite like that. The kid freaks out with all that information. Hyuk says he wants to give a present, and asks the kid's level, which is 154. Then with a little grin, he wonders what he should give. Sang-min is surprised that his arm disappears like that, and that's thanks to the portable storage between dimensions. And then he finally pulls out the gift, which is Hamuri's Swords of Fury with an attack power of 450 to 800. The boy is completely shocked by that, but he's also completely happy. However, he soon gets discouraged because he can't use it. That's because he needs 150 strength, and he's still missing 32 points. Suddenly, half of Hyuk's body disappears, but he comes back with some items that increase the strength stat. Sang-min thinks all of that is impressive, so the only thing he can do is thank him with all his might. In a village somewhere in Japan, the man massages around his head. He keeps doing it with a certain pressure. Meanwhile, crystal balls are glowing. The light gets even stronger. He asks if anyone's there, and soon gets an answer. A voice comes out of the ball saying the others still haven't arrived, and the man asks if he's ever seen the others show up on time. Anyway, the voice asks if the reason for the meeting is what it's thinking. Then it gets confirmation that it is. The topic is that the masked monarch has returned. That leaves the other person silent. Then the woman says she knew it was only a matter of time. She asks if he at least knows where he is. For a moment he stays silent, revealing the masked guy's location in South Korea. At the Yongsan district office, Sang-hyuk officially becomes a player, and he asks his brother if that's something to be congratulated for. Then Sang-min says they don't have a choice because they can be punished if they don't register with the player management department. The masked guy notices something as he walks. He spots several other people who came out of Eternal World. Sang-hyuk questions his brother about saying players returned without equipment, and the kid had forgotten he doesn't know. So he explains that the weapons were made on Earth. The masked guy asks if it's so they won't be thrown away after killing a monster. But Sang-min explains that doesn't happen in the real world, and that crafter class players, mages and others teamed up to make weapons and other gear. The kid also says that despite the effort, the items are low quality compared to what they used in Eternal World. Sang-hyuk says he has a favor to ask. With a smile he says there's someone he'd like to meet and asks if his brother can meet him. The kid looks a bit confused. They're at the Twilight Workshop. The brothers are standing in front of the place. Scared, Sang-min asks if the person he wants to meet is really in there, and the masked guy confirms, saying he didn't expect it to be so huge. The younger one asks if his brother really knows the person, which makes Sang-hyuk curious about whether he knows them too. Then Sang-min says all players know the Twilight Blacksmith. Even though the guy only did that and avoided fighting, he was included in the 400-member suicide squad during the castle attack. Not to mention the Twilight Workshop is where all the famous players from all over the world place their custom orders. Sang-min also reveals it's his dream to have his gear customized there. Smiling, the masked guy tells him to place an order, which makes his brother really happy. Then they finally decide to go into the shop. The door opens and they're greeted right away. A woman asks how she can help them. Sang-hyuk says he's there to meet Mr. Lee Chul-woo. The receptionist asks if he has an appointment, and when they say no, she says they can't meet him without one. Sang-min asks his brother if he's sure he knows the blacksmith, since neither of them is getting any VIP treatment. Sang-hyuk asks where the blacksmith is and finds out he's probably working in his workshop, which makes the receptionist a bit suspicious. Sang-hyuk just thanks her and takes off running. The woman tells him to stop, but the masked guy just wants to know where the place is, soon finding out it's in the basement. She still tries to say the boy can't go down there, but it's too late. In the workshop there are lots of items like weapons and armor, as well as all kinds of blades, and the blacksmith is working on another one. He's extremely careful with the prep, even though he's not a fighter. The blacksmith is level 98. Chul-woo turns around when he hears someone shout his name. He's shocked when he sees who's there. It's Yu Sang-hyuk standing there. The receptionist finally catches up, saying he can't be there. Sang-hyuk asks the blacksmith if he could make it up to the pretty woman, with a bonus, saying she was very kind to tell him where he was. The woman apologizes for it, saying the boy just came in without any warning. But Chul-woo just says she'll get a bonus check at the end of the month, leaving her confused. The blacksmith asks if she doesn't want it, and still scared, the receptionist just thanks him. Chul-woo says the masked guy is still making a scene, and the boy asks if he isn't happy to see him. The big man asks what Sang-hyuk means by that. After all, he was living a peaceful life when the masked guy dragged him to that terrible place. Sang-hyuk shows him the hammer. Startled, the blacksmith asks how he got that, because as far as he knows, there's no way to bring items back from the Eternal World. Smiling, Sang-hyuk says he brought back his whole inventory in his dimensional pocket, revealing it was a reward for completing the final mission. Chul-woo thanks him, saying he thought he'd never see his hammer again, but he finds it weird the masked guy didn't give it back to him. Sang-hyuk says the weapon is his now. The masked guy says he left it behind when he got eliminated, so he took it for himself. Sang-hyuk surprises him, saying that considering their friendship he'll give it back, but only if the blacksmith does him a favor. With no other choice, the blacksmith works on the request. Chul-woo asks if he didn't see the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. He tells the Red Knight to come back another time. Without saying anything, a sack gets tossed over. Inside are a bunch of really shiny items, which immediately grabs the blacksmith's attention. Sang-hyuk brought him Iferan steel, the brilliant black ore, the Horn of Denard, rare S-rank items. He wants to know how all of this was obtained. The masked monarch wants the blacksmith to make him an item. Chul-woo asks what he wants, and he smiles at what he has in mind. His simple request is a mask. Sang-hyuk says the place was just a small workshop when he first saw it, and he never would have imagined it would become something this big. And he also says he didn't know the blacksmith had such a sophisticated hobby. Chul-woo asks why he doesn't sit down and join the two of them. Sang-min introduces himself to the blacksmith. The big man says he seems like a good kid, unlike a certain other person. Joining in on the joke, Sang-hyuk says that if the guy keeps giving him attitude, he'll have to leave. Chul-woo wants to understand more about what happened and whether he really completed all the missions in Eternal World. The masked guy says he thought so. He says that for 2 years he defeated all the demon lords by himself until he finally fought Baal and won. But that in reality it was all just an illusion. Sang-hyuk doesn't understand the blacksmith's reaction. Chul-woo says it's unbelievable that the great masked monarch couldn't tell an illusion from reality, which seems disappointing for the guy. Still, Sang-min says he's happy his brother came back in one piece, and with a bonus for completing the final mission, Chul-woo goes quiet. Thinking as he hears that, he asks what favor they want. Sang-hyuk says it's something simple. Since he'll be a customer of the workshop, he wants his orders to get priority. Seeing how cocky the masked guy is, Chul-woo just agrees. Sang-hyuk also wants to give an item to his little brother, but he doesn't want people to recognize it. So the blacksmith quickly realizes he wants the design adjusted, which for him is a pretty easy job. So he asks for his hammer so he can work, and the masked guy actually gives it back. Chul-woo complains that he shouldn't just toss it around, but with a smile Sang-hyuk says it's not like it's going to break from falling. The blacksmith says the masked guy is always so sarcastic. Noticing something, Chul-woo asks if he forgot the fact that he still isn't level 100. Obviously Sang-hyuk has an ace up his sleeve, or rather in his dimensional pocket. He throws items onto the table. A Kibro's gauntlet with plus 50 points, gemstone of bin at plus 20, and Aaron's bracelet with plus 50 points. Even so, Chul-woo doesn't miss the chance to complain that he took way too long to do that. Sang-min wants to understand about the hammer, and his brother explains that it's Planer's hammer, the god of blacksmiths. The item is the best there is and includes lots of special abilities, but it requires the player to have strength and health above 200 points. As soon as he finishes explaining, the older brother says he's going to the bathroom. Chul-woo says he hates to admit it, but Sang-hyuk is really impressive. Sang-min asks if it's about the masked monarch who he's only heard stories about. Knowing the kid got eliminated in year 12, the blacksmith says he really wouldn't know him. With a smile, Chul-woo says there was nothing the monarch couldn't do in Eternal World, and that his power could turn the impossible into something possible just by being there. Like when he took down the evil dragon Nermus, who devoured 3 of his forces, and that's how they completed the mission that 4 major American guilds couldn't. The monarch also completed other impossible missions, and the memory of the masked guy dragging him into the 400-member suicide squad annoys him. Sang-min thinks the blacksmith hates his brother, but Chul-woo says that even if he wants to, he can't. Sang-hyuk shows up with the mask of the Monarch of Chaos, and reveals it was the blacksmith who made the item. Chul-woo confirms it, saying it was the biggest work of his life. The masked guy smiles like always sarcastically, and the blacksmith does the same, like good partners. Suddenly Sang-hyuk asks if there's any nice castle in Seoul. Chul-woo quickly realizes what he's getting at. Even so, he wants to confirm if it's what he thinks. Sang-hyuk says now that he's back, it's time to move, leaving both of them shocked, and the masked guy just says it's his new home. The place is heavily protected. There are plenty of guards covering every part. The brothers walk past them. Sang-hyuk comments that security is pretty strict around there. Since his brother doesn't know, Sang-min explains that if the monsters cross the designated areas, there'll be an overflow, so that's why they're careful. A guard asks what they're doing there. Right away, Sang-min changes direction to avoid trouble, but Sang-hyuk still has that unshakable look. He asks if this isn't where the National Museum of Korea used to be. At the meeting he had at the workshop, he talked about his ambition to move, making Chul-woo realize what's going through his head, and understand that he plans to take another castle from the monsters. Sang-min is confused and wants an explanation. The blacksmith says that in Eternal World, Sang-hyuk took a vampire queen's castle and turned it into a home. Impressed, the kid asks if it's true, and it didn't stop there. Chul-woo says he spared the vampire final boss's life so he could use her as a slave, and that's how he changed the place's name to Mask Castle. Sang-hyuk cuts in, asking if there's any castle in Seoul. The blacksmith goes quiet at the question, but he confirms there is one, known as the Night Witch's Castle. For Sang-hyuk, it's a great spot. There's a mountain behind it and a river in front, and it's close to the station too. Even though he agrees, Sang-min asks about their house. The masked one reassures him, saying he doesn't plan to sell it. After all, it's the precious home their mother left them. His words make his brother feel a lot better about the move. Sang-hyuk says that since he's the masked monarch, that house will always be a target. It could get invaded by monsters or other players looking for his items. He says that until they're safe from those threats, they'll live somewhere else. All the younger one can do is agree. Wrapping up the conversation, the masked one asks if he's ready. Sang-min is worried about the place's security, but of course the Red Warrior is ready. He's got his invisibility cloak, and it won't let anything see them. Sang-min asks what he doesn't have, and the older one makes it clear that, well, he's the legendary masked monarch. Sang-hyuk assures him they won't have any trouble with the cloak. The guards are on alert for any danger. One of them notices something approaching, but it's just another guard who doesn't even know when his own shift is, and none of them notice the intruders. Sang-min thinks it's all incredible, and the masked one tells him not to relax yet. He says he'll meet up with his brother after he gets past the guard post up ahead. Sang-min gets excited, asking for a cloak, and the masked one asks if he's planning to do something weird. The younger one denies doing anything like that. Sang-min spots what must be the Night Witch's castle. He also says the place hasn't been conquered, and that's why he thinks the players got weaker after coming back to the real world. Sang-min warns him that the place is home to succubi and incubi, so it's hard to invade since they use psychic attacks. Sang-hyuk says he knows a lot of powerful mages came back, and asks if they didn't make any immunity items. But even with lots of powerful mages, it's useless if they don't have ingredients for artifacts. After all, to make that stuff you need mana stones and other things. But Sang-min warns him about something, and says a mountain rose up from the depths in the middle of London, and he heard they found a mana stone mine there. Something catches the brothers' attention. They realize the castle walls are pretty hard to climb. Without wasting time, the masked one summons his inventory. He looks for something that'll help. Sang-hyuk picks one and equips it. A light hits the younger brother's eyes and he shields them, but as soon as he can see, he's pretty shocked. Sang-min asks if that's a dragon set. Sang-hyuk grabs him and tells him not to be scared. Without saying anything else, he jumps, flying with his brother in his arms. Freaked out, Sang-min asks how that's possible. Sang-hyuk says he's only just getting started. The masked one lands on the ground with a furious look. He's ready for the next part. He's curious to see how strong the monsters are. Someone is lurking at the window. With a smile on her face, the girl waits for her victims. She announces she has a guest. The older one warns his brother that the scent is the Night Witch's pollen, and if he fills his nose with that stuff, it's over. Scared, Sang-min asks if he heard the same thing. The weird vibe ends up drawing Sang-min in. He can see a mist that comes closer to him and slips into his nose, making the boy more and more unsettled. But it all gets solved with the slap Sang-hyuk gives him. Then the masked one tells him to get a grip. The brothers keep walking through the place. Sang-min asks if he's sure they can just stroll around there, and the other tells him not to worry. Sang-hyuk says all that's there are the incubi and succubi, and he could take a whole truckload of them without any problem. He hands his brother a ring and tells him to use it if he's worried. It's a defensive item against mental spells. Not noticing the danger, Sang-min asks if that'll keep the creatures away. But the voice behind him says the opposite. The boy turns around, totally startled. Beautiful girls say they've been waiting for him for a long time. Making him shy, one of them even asks if all warriors are this handsome. The blonde even asks if he'd like to have some fun with her. Another offer is made to him. All the horned girls want a bit of fun with him. They even try to hug him to help with the tiredness, making him absent-mindedly breathe in more of that mist. Finally, the masked monarch shows up, threatening them if they keep making the place stink. He says he'll take all of them, leaving those girls scared. They run off, not wanting to risk it, and Sang-min is left behind, embarrassed. Sang-hyuk yells in his ear, snapping him out of the trance. The kid falls to the floor, not understanding what happened. A bit annoyed, Sang-hyuk tells his brother not to disappoint him. After all, they're low-level succubi. That even makes the kid a little sad. Sang-min says they should think better about the idea of actually moving to the place. Still serious, Sang-hyuk tells him again not to worry. He says this will end once he makes the owner of the place obey him. Sang-min asks if those things were really succubi, and the older one asks if he was expecting to see girls with no clothes on, which the kid denies. Sang-hyuk explains that for each person, those creatures take on a form, changing depending on the victim's tastes. That leaves the younger brother thinking. The two open the door and come face to face with a hallway full of statues. Sang-hyuk realizes something's off, and with a cocky smile he says the owner is trying to play games. He says he thought a succubus queen would be different. The masked one suspects that right now she's planning a surprise for him. Then he notices something there. Stopping in front of a suit of armor, he asks what it's doing there. The owner of the house he plans to live in. Something is behind the armor. It's her. With her eyes glowing, she shoots out of the armor like lightning. Sang-hyuk asks what she thinks she's doing. Chasing after her, the masked one says he's got a deed to the castle for her to sign before she leaves. It doesn't take long for the masked one to catch up. Sang-hyuk is even faster. He stops in front of the queen saying she can't run. But something makes his eyes go wide. He finds the creature in front of him strange. To be sure, he asks if she really is Lilith. Almost everything is in ruins. They're so fast that sometimes you can only see flashes, along with the explosions caused by them, and more destruction coming from all sides. The masked one uses his powerful sword, fighting the succubus queen. Sang-hyuk admits she's stronger than other succubi. After all, she's Lilith, the lady of the night witches. With a laugh, she asks if the guy regrets fighting her, and says it's far too late for that. The masked monarch's sword is broken. That's impressive even to him. Lilith says she can't even believe he managed to block her power. Smiling, she says this time he won't have the same luck. Until she notices her horn is broken. Lying on the ground next to Sang-hyuk, he tells the queen to stop wasting her time and come at him, because he's got others to face. His arrogant talk makes the succubus irritated. Then Lilith goes at him. They're back to reality, with Sang-hyuk having remembered their encounter, but wanting to be sure it really is her. The masked one asks what happened, and if it really is her there, but annoyed, the girl just tells him to get out of her way, quickly passing by Sang-hyuk's side, but something is stopping her. The masked one easily managed to capture her. The queen demands that he let her go. Annoyed, the demon just wants to be free from his grip. Then Sang-hyuk calls her a child. With a terrifying look, he says she shouldn't make him repeat himself. He asks her name. The girl looks pretty scared, but with not much choice, she admits her name is Lilith. Still not believing it, Sang-hyuk asks for confirmation. He's really suspicious about it, asking why she turned into a child. Something catches Sang-hyuk's attention. Then an explosion happens there, the structure of the place shaking after the wall is broken. But the masked monarch stopped it with style. Sang-hyuk wants to know who those horned people are. Someone tells him to stop causing trouble and leave. The higher-ranked succubus named Marianne is holding his brother and says she doesn't want to hurt him. Sang-hyuk looks back. With his usual cocky smile, he says she doesn't understand what's going on there. Back with his mask on, he says she should ask nicely instead of ordering him around. Marianne doesn't understand the kind of danger he represents, but the order is to eliminate the human. Sang-hyuk is just waiting for all of them to come. He easily dodges the group's attack. His eyes shine, alert to everything. Then he catches Marianne off guard by asking if they really think just 6 of them are enough to take him down. The masked monarch is fast at what he does, snatching his little brother out of the succubus's claws. He asks Sang-min if he can run, and the boy agrees. The demons fire fireballs at them. Sang-hyuk is quick, dodging every single one, making the creatures have to push themselves even harder. The masked monarch threatens to take their fingers if they try again. But the strongest succubus won't give up. Marianne is ready to hit him with a butterfly dash. She fires her power at him. Sang-hyuk still doesn't move. While that blast is about to hit him, a powerful lightning bolt strikes the top of the castle. The sword's blade lights up. Everyone gets scared by it. even Marianne, who was confident. While he's completely lit up by the lightning, there's someone with him. Sang-hyuk is holding Lilith with him. The guy asks if she's ready to talk, calling her annoyingly, "Little princess." Day has already broken, totally changing the mood of the castle. Lilith, the demon's princess, is sitting on the bed. Sang-hyuk breathes easy, finally getting a bit of peace. The masked guy wants to get done with what he came there to do. He starts by asking if this place really is the Night Witch's castle. Annoyed, Lilith yells, asking what else he thinks this place would be. Not caring about her words, Sang-hyuk says it looks more like a citadel of irresistible charms. That makes the princess hesitate. Then the masked guy says it's Lilith's home, the one who rules the Night Witches. Marianne says the princess still isn't familiar with the situation. She explains it's only been 100 days since the girl woke up. Sang-hyuk is surprised to hear that. Then everyone looks at Lilith. The masked guy asks if that's why the demon queen looks like this. He asks if the pink-haired girl is the only succubus in the top rank, but Marianne admits she doesn't know her rank. After all, humans are the ones who make the rankings. Sang-hyuk asks if she's the only senior member there, and she confirms it. He says there were a lot more of them in Eternal World Citadel. Marianne says none of them know the details since they woke up. Sang-hyuk thinks for a moment. With a confident smile, he says he gets it now. Calling Lilith over, he sticks his hand into his dimensional pocket. The masked guy pulls out the paper so they can make a contract. Lilith looks at it curiously. It's a contract agreeing to subordination. She says she's never heard that word before, and Marianne warns her not to do it. The demon explains that it'll make the queen his slave for the rest of her life. Sang-hyuk gets her attention, wrapped in his terrifying aura. To intimidate her, he tells her not to get involved. Sang-hyuk moves toward Lilith, making all of them pretty scared, but he only touched her head and tells her not to worry. Sang-hyuk says he's just trying to protect her, which leaves the little princess confused. Then he asks if someone like him attacked this place again, they'd be able to defend it, but none of them has an answer to that. Sang-hyuk says he'll go over it with her, explaining that she'll be bound by contract until she becomes an adult. He also gives her the option to accept or cancel the deal. Lilith stays quiet, thinking about his words. The girl stands up and asks if he's serious, but Sang-hyuk just asks if that's how she talks to her new master. Lilith asks if he'll really cancel the contract when she becomes an adult. The masked guy promises he'll put that in the contract and tells the girl not to worry. He also warns that if she doesn't comply, her soul will be destroyed. Lilith doesn't have much of a choice, so she's ready to sign. Marianne calls out to her lady, but the girl is already getting the ink ready to sign. All she has to do is leave her signature with her own fluid. When she finishes, a light shines over the paper. Sang-hyuk smiles at that, because the two of them have a deal. He asks the other lady if her name really is Marianne. The succubus looks a bit thoughtful, but in the end she confirms that's her name. Then all the demons bow to the Lord. Of course, he gives a sarcastic smile and suggests they first change the nameplate on the door. In Monument Valley in the USA, the monsters are being taken out. One tries to catch the player off guard by attacking from behind, but he defends himself using his double blade. The man holds his ground so he won't lose the fight, using his strength to push the creature back. He looks over at his partner, surrounded. The other one is in a brutal battle, cutting down his enemies like they're bread. He isn't scared even though there are so many. With a single strike, he manages to split several of them in half, knocking the monsters away. He's honestly pretty terrifying. His name is Richard Paulson, the Sun Knight of the Absolute Guild, level 220. He says the monsters might have dropped some items, and asks them to check the area. The masked guy calls for his master. Harry Bertland, level 187, known as the Scythe of Judgment, says he needs to take a look at something. Richard takes the phone from his hand. The Golden Knight pays attention to what he's talking about. Then he smiles when he realizes it's about the masked monarch, and that the player finally came back. In a city in Russia, people are bundled up because of the cold. Their eyes are fixed on their phones, focused on the news they're reading. The same thing is happening in the UK. People are calmly moving through the city. At the newsstands, the papers have the headline about the masked monarch showing up. Even in Hong Kong, the news is talking about it. It's everywhere. Meanwhile, somewhere else, several photos of the monarch were taken down. The man studies each image carefully. His eyes lock onto something interesting. Finally back in Seoul, Sang-hyuk puts on his armor. He has the feeling something is following him. When he turns around, he sees several men behind him. Cho Sok-hyun, level 102, is the guildmaster of Balhae. The masked guy calls him a bastard, says it's been a while since he's seen him, and the man says the same. Sang-hyuk gets straight to the point, asking what he wants. He even asks if the guildmaster is going to beg for forgiveness. Sok-hyun gets really nervous. He says they made a terrible mistake in the other world, claiming they won't repeat the same actions, and asking for forgiveness. Sang-hyuk laughs at his words. He says the world they live in is interesting. After all, one man is begging forgiveness from another man who took his life. Anyway, he forgives him. But there's a condition. Sang-hyuk tells him to hold a press conference the next day, to confess to every crime he committed without adding or leaving out any truth, with the threat of being punished. The masked guy asks what he thinks about that. In the end, Sok-hyun accepts it. Sang-hyuk makes it clear that hard times are coming for the man, and that everything he worked for will collapse, and that there's nothing he can gain without pain. If he waits and gets through this moment, Sang-hyuk plans to help him, so he can build the right path. The castle belongs entirely to the monarch, and he makes the message crystal clear by putting up a symbol to show the place is his. There are lots of people outside, including reporters, all of them trying to grab whatever they can for themselves. People shout that they know he's in there, and they just want to ask a few questions. Then they beg for the door to be opened. The director of the player management department is there too. Someone asks him if he's sure the masked guy is inside. The man suggests they should go back. He is Park Sung-shik, a Year 12 player, and says the masked monarch was a terrifying player in Eternal World. And he advises them not to provoke the warrior, which ends up annoying the director. Young Chol says the masked guy should be in there greeting him, and yet he's still coming up with the idea of going back. The man says he doesn't know how good the player is, but he's still the management director. He's basically pounding on the door. Young Chol yells that the player should have come looking for him as soon as he got back, and gets mad that he's locked in. The front door opens. Everyone looks at what's inside, and the director has an ambitious smile. He laughs thinking he scared the masked guy. Young says he's ready to find out how strong the masked guy really is. Sung-shik immediately realizes something is wrong. The player warns that what's coming is dream dust. He yells for everyone to protect themselves from it. Not only that, he warns everyone to run. Sung-shik shields himself from the dust. The guy behind him says everything looks clean. Meanwhile, Myung is without his clothes while doing a weird dance. Sung-shik quickly realizes he's hallucinating and tells them to protect the director. The cameras are recording this humiliating moment. Sung-min comments that the man seems like someone important, and his brother fires back asking why someone like that would break into someone else's property. A sound catches Sung-hyuk's attention. He pulls his phone out of his pocket. It's a call from an unknown number. Sung-hyuk tells his brother to give him a few minutes. Far from there, he answers the call. The voice surprises him, saying it's been a while since they've seen each other, and the masked man suspects she's speaking Rosilian. Sung-hyuk asks how she got his number, and she says she knows everything. The person introduces herself as Jae, head of the Dark Chamber of Commerce of Eternal World. Sung-hyuk wants to know what she wants, and Jae asks if he isn't interested in knowing what she does. He threatens to hang up if she has nothing else to say. Jae asks if he doesn't have anything to give her, claiming she figured the masked monarch would have something interesting in his possession. She says the Dark Chamber of Commerce is planning an auction, but they don't have anything to make it happen. Sung-hyuk tries to deny having anything, but Jae says that in this world a bit of money can be useful. He thinks for a bit, then says he'll give a ring. Jae wants to know what kind. The monarch explains that the item reduces cooldown time by 5% and increases resistance to fire and magical effects by 5% each. With a smile, Jae says she couldn't have asked for anything better, but she remembers that ring, and Sung-hyuk confirms it used to belong to the Crimson Witch. Jae says the other one would sell her house just to buy it back. He asks where they should make a deal. Jae explains that for Korea they use the lockers at Seoul Station, and says she'll send the details by message. The call then ends. Not even Sung-hyuk was expecting to get brushed off that fast. He heads to Seoul Station as agreed, using the hood so he won't draw too much attention. Sung-hyuk goes up to one of the lockers. When he opens it, there's a box inside. Sung-hyuk is a little suspicious. He decides to go to his old house, meeting up with his brother. Sung-min is desperate to know what's going to happen. He asks how much all of this costs. Along with several stacks of cash, there's also an envelope. Without wasting time, Sung-hyuk grabs it. His eyes go wide at what he sees. It's a check, and the total amount is 10 billion won. The truck is going at high speed, and they're filming, not wanting to miss a single detail. The lenses are focused on this mess. There are lots of cargo trucks entering the castle, with a small car leading them. The vehicle is the first to stop. Someone's in the passenger seat and opens the door. The one who gets out of the car is the super stylish blacksmith, dressed in a suit, but he doesn't care about anything at all. Soon he's greeted by someone telling him the master is waiting for him. Beautiful horned girls will kindly show him the way. His expression is still suspicious. The door opens for him to enter. Finally, Chol-woo meets Sang-hyuk. The masked man says he's late. Suddenly the big guy comes up to him, and he doesn't understand what's happening. Chol-woo crushes him in a hug and says the kid has a special talent for causing trouble, accusing him that the world fell into chaos because of him. Sang-hyuk only asks him to let go first. The masked man complains he's way too strong and the squeeze almost left him out of breath. After recovering, Sang-hyuk gets straight to the point and asks if the man has made a decision to move the workshop to the castle. With a serious look, Chol-woo asks him to listen. The blacksmith says he didn't come because of him. He asks how he could refuse the offer when the kid has all the raw materials from the other world right there. Chol-woo asks if there's electricity there, because he heard electronics don't work on altered land. Since nothing works yet, he says it'll take some time. And he also considers the possibility of having to do it like he did in Eternal World. If it's that way, it'll take a month. Sang-hyuk asks him to build everything in that time and he freaks out, saying he can't. With a smile, the masked man reveals he plans to give the Twilight Workshop first pick of the monster's byproducts and asks if he still can't make it work. His words make the man irritated. The blacksmith says he'll have to use the mana-powered generator, and Sang-hyuk asks if he means the Phoenix Heart. Pulling out 3 of them, he asks if that's enough. Excited, Chol-woo says it's more than enough, and the masked man says he has more. He should let him know when he needs more. And there's one more thing to be said. Sang-hyuk has another favor to ask, making the blacksmith curious about what it is. The monsters are all around the castle. The masked monarch keeps cutting down everyone in his way. There are other warriors in the fight, all fierce and giving it everything they've got. This happened back in Eternal World, when they were doing the final mission. The man in the gray mask tells his master to leave the monsters to them and move on. Then the other one remembers. They're members of the Masked Mercenaries Guild. Then the woman adds that they can handle it. She says the monarch needs to save his energy to defeat the Demon King. The man yells at him not to waste time. Sang-hyuk stands there, thinking about what they said. Suddenly, behind him, Bale shows up saying he has loyal friends. Sang-hyuk quickly looks back. Before he can even react, the king strikes him, a heavy hit that makes him spit up his own lifeblood. Bale has a terrifying smile. The demon attacks again, this time an explosive one. Sang-hyuk gets thrown far away, taking even more damage to his body. On top of being strong, the Demon King is terrifying. With a smile, Bale says it's disappointing. He says he thought the Masked Monarch would be different. Red crystals are flying toward the monster, but he easily blocks them with a shield. One of the guild members tries a surprise attack from behind, but it's like it was nothing. The girl in the group also tries to use her special. Bale disappears before it even hits. Her eyes go wide, not understanding what just happened. Then the villain appears behind her. Bale declares she'll be taken out first. Meanwhile, the monarch is collapsing to the ground, watching his team get slaughtered. Even weak, he tells everyone to fall back. The butcher asks his master if he's okay. Sang-hyuk warns that the king is way too strong for them, but even so, the gray mask says they'll buy time for him. The butcher tells him to run. He also promises everyone will be right behind him. The monarch tries to stop him, but the butcher just tells the other partner that he's counting on him. The Twilight blacksmith is there too. Chol-woo has a serious look. He asks Sang-hyuk if he can get up. The monarch orders everyone to retreat immediately. The butcher says he needs to save at least one more life and asks him to use a healing item. The man has no intention of following his lord's order, because he knows damn well Sang-hyuk is the only one who can defeat the Demon King. So he asks him to level up and finish the mission. With a smile, he reminds him that's the goal of the Masked Mercenaries Guild. And with that, the mercenary heads into the fight. Sang-hyuk yells for him, but it's too late. He ends up coughing up more blood, which worries the blacksmith. Someone shouts Yoon. Sang-hyuk, telling him to wake up. Several explosions go off in the castle. He can see it until his eyes close completely. The girl's body is lying on the ground. Same with his companions. It's too late for the butcher too. Sang-hyuk witnesses the end of his subordinates. His gaze is distant, not believing this really happened. He closes his eyes, furious. Then he screams out all the pain he's feeling. Sang-hyuk is back in reality, free from that nightmare he went through. Someone announces the arrival of his guests. He gives the order to let them in, immediately putting on his mask. The door is finally opened. His guests step into his room. Sang-hyuk gives a small smile as he says it's been a long time since he's seen them. At last, the masked team is back. It really has been a while since they said goodbye. Butcher is the captain of the Masked Mercenaries Guild, level 165. Guillotine is the vice captain, level 132. Iceflower is also a vice captain of the guild, and is level 138. The Masked Monarch takes a good look at his team. With a smile, he asks how they've been, and they're all doing perfectly fine. Butcher says they've been eating and sleeping well, and they've been having a lot of fun too. Hearing that makes Sang-hyuk happy. The monarch asks if they've been keeping in touch with the other guild members, and the big guy reveals everyone came to Seoul when they heard he was back. That catches him off guard. Butcher says they were getting ready to reunite in time for the Lord's return, and that one of them even came to Korea with their whole family. The monarch says that's going way too far. Iceflower says everyone is waiting for his command. All he has to do is say the word. Sang-hyuk is satisfied with his team. A suitcase gets tossed to the big guy. He wants to know what it is. The monarch says there are 3 billion won in there. The plan is to use the money to move the headquarters to the current location. What he says leaves everyone shocked. Construction on the site has already started. There are a lot of people working on it, and a lot still to do. From up high, Sang-hyuk and Chol-woo watch everything. The master says things are moving faster than he expected. Chol-woo agrees. After all, more than 100 people, including the mercenaries, are working on the project. He adds that the workshop furnace is almost finished too, which means they can speed things up even more. All of a sudden, Sang-hyuk says he should hurry up and get ready too, making the blacksmith curious. Then the monarch reveals his plan to conquer the world, which freaks Chol-woo out. Somewhere in a city in Italy, the woman calmly sips her drink. She gives a small smile. She asks her partner if he's heading out and suggests he grab something to eat. Part of the Red Magic Tower Guild, the Crimson Witch is level 205. Something makes her partner tremble. It's the clock, showing it's exactly 1 o'clock. The woman asks about the item. He shakes the red box, showing where it is, making the witch look at it with curiosity. The box is opened right away. A red light from inside lights up the witch's face, confirming it really is her ring. She wants to understand how it came back to the real world, and asks if this has anything to do with the Masked Monarch. But the man just gives the price, 20 billion won for the item, and asks how she's going to pay. On the phone, someone asks if it should be done to the same account. She confirms to transfer 20 billion won. The witch asks the man in front of her to check the account. He does, and immediately stands up. Still, the man is also ready to answer the question she asked, confirming the item was brought by the masked monarch. That surprises the witch. She smiles, wanting to know what the masked one is doing right now. In Inja County in Kangwon Province, several explosions happen at the same time. People run in fear trying to save their lives, because terrifying monsters are after them. With mouths full of sharp teeth and a horrible look, Guillotine says Echo Canyon was famous in the eternal world as a refuge for the undead, now located in Inja County, and because of all the mountain ranges, the area covers a huge stretch of land. That's why even nearby cities get evacuation orders when there's an overflow, and the damage caused by the undead is worse. Guillotine also says nobody seems to have a solution, so it's a real headache for the government. The monarch says that will be their first attack. He smiles at the idea of the masked mercenaries taking care of a problem even the government couldn't handle, so he declares they'll make the battle send-off as big as possible. Sang Hyuk wants the whole world to know the masked ones are back. As always, there's a reporter snooping around the castle to deliver the news the world wants to know. He's ready to broadcast live the big send-off of the masked mercenaries guild. The man also talks about the monarch having given his group the important mission of conquering Echo Canyon. He realizes everything seems to be ready. After all, the castle gate is opening. They start marching out. There's a whole legion of masked ones. Camera flashes turn toward the butcher. In a memory from the past, the door opens for the trio to enter. The Lord warns it'll be hard to fight using those weapons, then asks them to let him know if they need anything. One of the masked ones, surprised, asks if all of that isn't from the other world. The monarch makes it clear they have a lot of work to do there, and tells them to think of it like a signing bonus. The butcher still thinks a lot about it. Like a great captain, he shouts that the masked mercenaries will conquer Echo Canyon, and tells everyone to get on the buses. Soon the reporter shares the news with people about the guild's trip to Injo. He also asks how the team is going to conquer a place where every other group has failed. Either way, KBN will keep bringing everyone the updates, saying they'll be heading to Injo for the latest. Sang Hyuk says he's happy he had the team rehearse. The guy glances at the girl beside him. He asks if the ice cream is good, and with a smile, Lilith says yes. Then the masked one says she's had enough since this is the 10th one. But the princess just says they're delicious. There isn't much he can do about that. Sang Hyuk just orders that this will be the last one because the two of them need to go and she wants to know their destination. Smiling, the masked guy says they've got a job to do. He just says he left something behind, making Lilith curious. Only 2 guards are protecting the entrance to the place. They're watching KBN, who believes the masked monarch is waiting for the right moment to show up. The guard smiles, ready to see the Lord in action. They comment on how embarrassing it'll be if they fail the mission. Someone's presence is noticed. Doing his job, the guard tries to warn that the area is restricted, but he gets caught in a strange mist, making them fall asleep on the ground. Even Lilith is surprised by how fast it was. She asks the monarch if she can touch them, but the guy tells her to leave them alone because they don't have much time. The two of them enter the place that was being guarded. Lilith says she's feeling a huge amount of mana. Looking a bit scared, the girl asks where they are. She says she doesn't like scary places. The Bradal Catacomb in Eternal World is where priests and holy knights are buried. A place that's sacred got contaminated because of Baal, the head of the demon lords, disturbing the rest of God's children, disturbs his authority, and that boosts the power of those creatures. So the place lost its holiness and turned into a kingdom of the undead. Right behind Lilith, a monster appears. Even startled, she attacks, making the pile of bones fall apart on the ground. Still, its structure keeps moving. Little by little, the undead recovers. With just one punch, the monarch destroys the monster, throwing the pile of bones far away. Thanks to Baal using his dark authority there, since the undead in Bradale are on another level, especially the fallen pope, who besides being over level 200, is one of the strongest and most well-known. There's a reason the masked guy is there. Together with Lilith, he approaches a peculiar door. Sang Hyuk tells the girl to stay there. Lilith, the future queen of demons, is really scared. Masked monarch opens the door. He walks up to a sword that's shining brightly, the most powerful one in Eternal World, Admarion the Dragon King's Mercy. Sang Hyuk looks at his new acquisition. Without wasting time, he grabs the sword and pulls it from its place. The sword shines even more, but even if it was only hinted at, this sword took the Demon King's head and pierced his heart, a powerful weapon for a powerful player. Something catches Sang Hyuk's attention. Looking back, he notices an army of undead. In the crowd is the fallen pope, one of the creatures with insane strength. He smiles at all of it. It's time to have some fun. But before he could do anything, the monsters get attacked. Sang Hyuk is confused as he looks at a hooded figure, the one responsible for attacking the monsters. He tells Sang Hyuk he didn't expect to see him there. The hooded one reveals he's another masked guy and says he didn't expect to run into him there. Meanwhile, the undead tries to attack the one in the green cloak. He easily dodges, making the creatures miss their target. The masked guy looks at the pile of bones on the ground, using his weapon to write something in the dirt. He made a magic circle using the monsters. His eyes glow as he looks at it. He chants a few words, Yasurum ante rium haruna. The bones move as he says, Harira kum dari han mahan. Then he says, Gary noyo nanmian baven. Raising his hands, he yells, "Come dog born in hell." The intense light hits the undead. Shanghai watches it all, impressed. A new creature is created, and the masked guy declares it's time for him to eat. The undead army sticks together for the attack, but they're easily broken apart by the dog. It can easily defeat the monsters. Still, more show up to attack, using their swords and other weapons, but the dog is fiercer than them, knocking an undead to the ground, and crushing its bones in a single bite. More skeleton monsters attack the dog, which just makes the animal even angrier, and it goes after them, tearing them apart. Shanghai just watches the whole fight. He's freaked out by the whole scene. The hellhound keeps attacking like crazy, leaving a bunch of them in pieces on the ground, easily snapping bones with its powerful teeth. The creature looks back, letting out a pretty terrifying scream. A lightning bolt ends up hitting it, and that finally puts an end to the hellhound. The hooded guy looks to where it came from. It's the fallen pope standing there. The monster's response is to open its mouth to fire another bolt of power. It spits out a strong blast, but the masked guy didn't take serious damage, so the monster decides to go in, attacking head-on. The hooded guy ends up dodging before getting hit, and chants more magic words, Naruma Biku Komboisha. While the creature chases him, he continues, Narupa Rosuma, summoning even more hellhounds. These small, fierce creatures roar at the Pope. The boss uses his sacred symbol to attack them, hitting several dogs at the same time. They're easily taken out one by one. Still, there are too many to fight. The fallen Pope seems to handle them easily. Meanwhile, the hooded guy watches the fight, worried. Then the shots go toward him, hitting the spot where he is. The fallen Pope thinks he took him out, but he's impressed by the quick response. The masked monarch ended up protecting him with a magic shield, but the hooded guy gets annoyed at the interference, saying he didn't ask for help, but Sang-hyuk just says he's still stubborn as always. The monarch already grabs his new gear, ready to wipe the boss out of the place. He attacks right away with a dragon blade. This time even the fallen Pope gets scared. He gets hit by a huge explosion. Even the hooded guy is impressed. Sang-hyuk surprises him, saying he hasn't seen him since the Suicide Squad's first mission. This is the necromancer, Yang Su-chan. The hooded guy asks if he shouldn't be in Echo Canyon, and Sang-hyuk also wants to know what he's doing here. Su-chan says the reason is obvious, because the place is full of top-quality bones. The monarch says he's crazy for coming alone. He also wants to say one more thing, and he invites the hooded guy to join the Masked Mercenaries Guild. So Chan wants to know why he joined the group. Then Sang-hyuk says he heard he wants to surpass Ahmed Hassan, so the masked guy wants to help him reach that goal. The necromancer thinks about the offer. He says the guild is already strong enough, so he wants to know why the masked guy wants to use him. With a smile, Sang-hyuk says there's a goal behind it, to defeat the Demon King for good. Back at the country's airport, Jay just finished another trip. Her phone starts ringing. Without wasting time, she answers. Some people stop to watch the Masked Mercenaries Guild on the news, just to talk about the successful mission of taking over Echo Canyon. Jay stays on the phone getting information. Finally, she realizes what's going on. She looks at the person in focus on the TV, then says that first she needs to visit the masked monarch. Jay walks into the coffee shop, looking around for her contact, which doesn't take long to find. In the distance, she spots Sang-min sitting down. Then she calls out to the boy. The woman asks if the monarch isn't there, but the boy says he doesn't understand what she's saying. Jay is surprised he can speak Rosalian, and he says he's a player too. The woman says she feels more comfortable speaking that language because of the time she spent in the other world. There were people from lots of countries and everyone could understand each other with it. Anyway, it's a pleasure for her to meet him. Jay introduces herself as the head of the Dark Chamber of Commerce. The two of them sit down for coffee. In the middle of the conversation, she congratulates him on the victory in Echo Canyon. Then she asks where the monarch is, and Sang-min says he had business to take care of, so he came in his place. Jay agrees that the Crimson Warrior is a busy man. Getting straight to the point, she asks to see the item. Sang-min hands her the box. Jay opens it eagerly to see. The woman's eyes light up at what's inside. She says they can count on them to sell the item and that he doesn't need to worry. But there's something else that needs to be handled. Sang-min says his brother asked her to look into something else, and the boss says she sent the invitations as requested. Then the boy gets eager to know more details. Jay says they won't have a choice but to come, since it's an invitation from the masked guy himself. People want to know from Richard the reason for the visit. Inside the car, the other man asks if the place is Guanguamo. Michael Buren, known as the Hammer of God, is part of the Cathedral Knights of the United Kingdom. Some curious people want to know who the beautiful woman is. From China, this is Liu Xiaoyu, master of the Nine Dragons Swordsman Guild. Other guests enjoy the food from the stalls. The Russian Ian Galail from the Emperor Guild asks for more delicious pancakes. There are two guards standing there doing their job. Meanwhile, calmly, Hasagawa Ryota from Japan's Forest Sword Ghost Guild drinks his coffee in peace. Manuel Matthias from the German Guild Dragon Hunters also arrives. He believes he's in the right place, at the Masked Monarch's castle, where the meeting invitation was made. Soon the news spreads about the arrivals. From KBN, it's known that all the masters of powerful guilds around the world arrived in Korea early in the morning. Everyone's been chiming in about the sudden visit. To everyone's surprise, the guests just walked right into the castle. A beautiful banquet was served for the masters, Richard is on the suspicious side, while Ian is a lot calmer. From above, they're being watched. Chol Woo can't believe the guild masters are in the same room, and Butcher says it's the first time since the Suicide Squad's first mission. Smiling, the blacksmith says Sang-hyuk has a gift for making headlines, giving him credit for being smart. Michael slams the table, annoyed, wanting to know how long they're going to wait, and he threatens to leave if he has to wait one more minute. Richard tells the man he's impatient, and that's why he hasn't changed at all. The beautiful Lubo says the same goes for the masked monarch, saying the man thinks of them like they're just accessories. The long-haired guy doesn't get what she means by that, so the woman explains that the monarch used them in Eternal World, but someone doesn't see it that way. Ian says they did a good job helping him finish the final mission. With a convincing smile, he asks if the player could have done it without them. Annoyed, Louis yells that the masked guy took all the glory from the mission. Jumping into the argument, Richard asks them to be honest. He says it's not the glory that's making them mad, it's the reward. Louis asks if that isn't why they're there to find out what the prize is. Michael also reminds everyone that the masked guy brought items from the other world, so he tells them to take a good look at the mercenaries' gear, which looks like it came from Eternal World. Richard looks at the men. A voice ends up drawing their attention. The masked monarch walks in, announcing they should celebrate a day like this. He says no one would have imagined they'd be gathered like this again. But Michael has a strange reaction. He says he's sure the masked guy didn't invite them for some trip down memory lane. Then he gets straight to the point, asking why they're there. That makes Sang-hyuk smile. So he doesn't waste the man's time, he gets straight to the point. Sang-hyuk raises his arm. His hand disappears into space, which freaks the guests out. Ryota quickly realizes it's a dimensional pocket. Something is being pulled out of it. An item from the other world, which leaves everyone in the room shocked. Annoyed, Michael wants to know how he got that. It's the blonde guy's warhammer, which makes him so mad he lunges at the monarch. Sang-hyuk asks him to calm down, because the invitation is to return the items to their rightful owners. Michael is completely stunned hearing that. The masked monarch smiles at what he's about to say, and then he suggests they start a weapon auction. That catches everyone off guard, making Michael react even more angrily, asking what the kid thinks he's doing. After all, the item belongs to him. But Sang-hyuk just asks why the hammer would be his. He says he simply brought back ownerless weapons from the game. Then he asks if there's any problem with that. Obviously that pisses Michael off even more. Richard surprises everyone by announcing he'll buy the hammer, leaving Michael even more rattled. But the Golden Knight just makes it clear. If the monarch said it's an auction, that means he can bid too. Michael makes a threat, saying that as soon as he gets his hammer back, he'll send his friend over to the other world. Someone asks them to be quiet. A man in a suit announces the starting price is 10 million, and explains bids can only go up by 500,000, and so the auction begins. In a private room, the woman asks if he isn't being a little cruel to her. But Sang-hyuk claims he doesn't know what she's talking about. Jay asks what he's trying to get out of all this, asking if he wants to rule them or if he's just after a lot of money. But the guy answers that it's all just bait, making the woman curious about that. Sang-hyuk says now that he's thrown out the bait, it's time for them to bite. Jay is still confused about what he planned for the meeting. The bids keep coming, reaching 31 million. Richard offers another 500,000, annoying the item's former owner. Another bid comes in at 200 million. This time it was Manuel. The auctioneer asks if anyone else wants to bid, otherwise they'll move on to the next item. Michael doesn't have much choice if he wants his hammer back, so he bids 210 million. The auctioneer asks if there's any other bid, but everyone stays silent, so Tamien's anger turns toward Michael Buren. Finally, they're going to start with a new item. This one is the Sun's Blessing. Leaving Richard pretty shocked by that, he looks around on all sides worried, watching which of the masters will turn out to be traitors and try to take it. Michael's got a sarcastic grin, ready for his revenge. He starts by calling out a bid of 200 million, which only makes things worse for the Golden Knight. It's already late at night and the auction has ended. Richard walks calmly, enjoying the night breeze. A voice comes from behind saying they've got unfinished business. It's Michael standing there. The guy is pretty pissed off. Richard says he doesn't know what he's talking about. He says that because of the long-haired guy, he also spent over 200 million. But Michael says that's not what matters here. Pulling a dagger, he says the man pissed him off. The two start fighting, even causing small explosions. The Sun Knight asks if that's how the other guy wants to play, and Michael asks how long the man thinks he can disrespect him and walk away. Spotless, declaring his end tonight. Richard doesn't hold back either. Firing back, he hits the blonde guy with his glove, sending his opponent flying far from there. Michael took a solid hit, staying down on the ground like an old dog. Richard reminds the blonde guy that he's a higher level than him in the other world. So in the real world, it's the same story. Annoyed, Richard tells him to shut up and charges in with the blade, which in a way surprises the Golden Knight. Still, he manages to dodge that bolt, which ends up hitting the wall. Richard looks at what just barely missed him, realizing Michael really isn't messing around, so he grabs his sword. He says apparently neither of them is getting out of there alive. Michael also grabs his hammer, agreeing with what his enemy said. One raises his sword to attack, while the other uses his hammer. They're ready to face each other to the end. In a battle that happens in the silence of the night, the rivals are staring each other down, still not understanding who lost the fight, but neither of them got hit. which leaves Richard confused. And Michael is too. He complains about the Golden Knight holding back, and the other says he didn't. Then he throws a punch at the long-haired guy. Michael does the same. All of a sudden he looked kind of confused, not understanding. Richard's in the same situation, both looking at their weapons, not understanding what's going on. There's something wrong with the sun's blessing, just like Tyen's wrath. They realize no weapon is working. From the high window, Sang-hyuk watches them. He smiles at his plan, because they finally took the bait. Richard accuses the masked guy of knowing from the start, and asks why he wasn't told he still can't use the sun's blessing. Sang-hyuk says he never told him to buy the sword, and asks why the man is even questioning that. He says the Golden Knight should have checked if he had enough points to use it before buying it. Giving up, Richard asks what he wants, and what he has to do to be able to use the sword. So the monarch wants him to beg him, all because he heard the USA is up to its neck in dungeons that were considered hard to raid. Sang-hyuk smiles and says he'll take care of that for him, which leaves the knight impressed. Richard says that's way beyond his control. He says he doesn't know how things are in Korea, but in the USA the hunting grounds and dungeons are under heavy security. Sang-hyuk says that's exactly why he's asking the man to beg him, just in case they feel the need for someone like him. The monarch looks at everything calmly, while Richard thinks the situation is complicated. He leaves the masked guy's room, immediately finding the scene in front of him weird. It's the other masters waiting for him. The bald guy goes straight to asking if the masked guy also talked about areas and dungeons with him. Richard says it looks like the monarch got the best of everyone. As always, Michael has an explosive temper, angry at having been tricked, yelling that one of the two is going to die and there won't be any middle ground. Someone asks if the blonde guy is dumb or just stupid, putting an end to his tantrum. Richard asks why he doesn't think about a change. The Golden Knight says he wouldn't be able to block a single blow with such a pathetic weapon, leaving even Michael without an answer. Richard tells them to think it through and decide whether they should make a deal with the devil or not. The masters then fall silent, thinking about it. On Mount Odae in Gangwon province, several monsters scream, attacking with their weapons. They fight against the bony ones, splitting their bodies apart easily. With just one punch he can break them, doing that to everyone who comes at him. A skeleton even tries a sneak attack, catching the big red monster off guard, and it ends up losing its head. Then other skeletons rush in, attacking other giant red monsters. While the fight is going on, there's someone up high. It's Su-chan watching everything. Sang-hyuk shows up next to him, and says he can't believe he cleared Variak's dangerous path all by himself. The necromancer just asks what he expected from a player at his level, and the masked guy laughs, saying he never knew he was so quick to catch on. Changing the subject, the hooded guy wants to know why he made such an absurd demand. What happened to the people who took part in the auction? He's been thinking that this isn't Eternal World anymore, so if you get eliminated, it's forever. Sang-hyuk asks how far he's trying to take this. So Shan says his conclusion is that players need to get stronger so fewer of them end up dying. Monarch just watches in silence. Then he comments that he's got a lot of stuff in his dimensional pocket, but he was wondering how many players he can actually gear up. Sang-hyuk knows the number of solo players in Eternal World is around 100 million, so he can't equip them all. He says maybe he can help them in another way, but he wonders who he'd even choose for that, coming to the conclusion that in the end, players have to get stronger on their own. The necromancer stares at him, thinking, so Shan gets what he means, but he doesn't think that answers his question. Sang-hyuk needs to be even clearer about his reason. In his mind comes the memory of that terrible day, when he was losing Sang-min and his brother said he wanted to go all the way with him. He also remembers Iceflower saying she'd buy time, so he could escape the place. His teammates were confident he was the only one who could defeat the Demon King, and they refused to leave. Everyone was ready for the end of the journey. Sang-hyuk kept fighting the monsters, walking forward in search of hope, only to find his entire guild eliminated, which left him really sad. Then Bale's voice tells him things are going to be fun. He says he's looking forward to it. The Demon King has an evil smile, and Monarch looks at him with anger. Sang-hyuk made an absurd demand, and he explains it's because he doesn't want to lose this team. Su-chan doesn't say anything else, finally understanding him. On the news they talk about the solo conqueror, and also about the masked mercenary guild that cleared the fallen sanctuary. There were other achievements like the masked lands. On the news they say the masked monarch cleared 3 hunting grounds and dungeons that were considered impossible to raid, turning the Republic of Korea into a gaming powerhouse. A meeting happens at the JW group, where the boss asks if they still haven't gotten in touch with Monarch. The man yells, asking if he doesn't know all eyes are on Korea right now, so he offers any amount to bring him in for photos. Sang-hyuk enjoys the sunset on a beautiful island. He has that same smile as always. The guy thinks this is perfect for TV, and wonders if he should go to that place. His phone rings, showing it's Jay. The woman asks how it feels to be a star of the world, and Sang-hyuk just says if she's going to waste his time he'll hang up. Jay laughs at how little he wants to chat and gets straight to the point, saying she just got a call from the United States, congratulating him on his plan working. Meanwhile, in the Las Vegas desert, you can already tell something isn't going well. Anyway, Sang-hyuk was recommended to conquer an impossible-to-raid dungeon. Everything seems calm there, until the missiles get launched in that direction, causing the place to blow up. The place is being bombed, Smoke comes out of the firing weapon, and the missile launch is completed, asking to confirm the strike, and the broadcast is happening too. The answer is no to the request due to poor visibility. Storm A, and they ask for an image for Squadron 1, but that's not possible either because of the fog. So they switch to Plan C and announce they're going in. A task force even using war tanks, each soldier heavily equipped for the situation, and a lot of them to deal with the problem. Through the fog you can see glowing red eyes. An explosion startles the soldiers. It's an enemy attack, but they're told to hold formation. Something is being attacked in the middle of the fog, keeping them from knowing what's happening. The soldier tries to see through the fog. Suddenly a roar from behind him makes his body freeze. He quickly looks back. Without wasting time, he starts shooting. With it being just him against the creatures. Now at McCarran International Airport, a plane has just landed. As soon as the door opens, the passengers are let out. He's greeted by Richard, who quickly comments that the player got what he wanted. The Golden Knight asks if he should thank him for that, but Sang-hyuk waves it off. So Richard just wishes him good luck. He's confident in the masked man, just like the monarch is in the same situation. The trip happens in the room. Richard breaks the silence, saying the situation there doesn't look very good. He says 5 guilds, including Absolute, tried to raid the place for years, but none succeeded. And that even though the military carried out a large-scale attack not long ago, it also failed. Sang-hyuk knows and understands the situation. Richard also says the government gave the green light this time, but there's a catch. The man looks back, irritated. Su-chan asks what he's looking at, while Lilith is hungry and asks for ice cream. Richard is confused by those two. He asks the masked man if it's really just the 3 of them. Sang-hyuk explains the guild has a lot of work to do in Korea, saying they also need to raid other dungeons. Out of patience, Richard tells him to listen, because he thinks the masked man didn't understand. He says hundreds of people lost their lives because of the dungeon, and it won't be as easy as the masked man thinks. Suddenly the hooded guy gets his attention. Su-chan says he doesn't exactly understand what the 2 of them are talking about, but tells the man not to worry, because they won't fail. That makes Richard a little worried, but they keep going on the trip. Out in the desert area, a drone is flying, passing over the team set up there. The place is full of reporters getting their cameras ready. Soon something catches their attention. At last the masked monarch has arrived. They try to interview the player, wanting to know if he's confident he can raid the dungeon. Sang-hyuk is up high, watching what's going on there. But there's nothing to see except a haze caused by the dust. They'll face the Great Labyrinth, which despite the simple name, wasn't considered impossible to raid only in the real world, but also in Eternal World. Su-chan asks if he hasn't raided the dungeon before. Sang-hyuk explains that the Great Labyrinth not only changes the route, but also the monsters. Getting lucky enough to defeat the boss, but even so he couldn't clear the entire dungeon. They get the notice that they can go in. Sang-hyuk tells them not to worry, because he's at a higher level than he was back then. The car that brought them is still parked there. Someone knocks on the window glass, making Richard immediately open it, asking what it is. The commander of the Absolute Guild asks if it's really only 3 people who are going in there. Richard just confirms, saying the man saw them himself. Harry says he gets that it's the masked monarch, but still thinks it's ridiculous. After all, several guilds and soldiers couldn't find the entrance to the Great Labyrinth, and he asks how 3 people are going to do that. The Golden Knight stays quiet, thinking of an answer, but even he doesn't know. Still, Richard doubts they'll fail, because he knows one thing. The masked monarch is the only man who completed every mission in Eternal World. The haze is getting worse and worse, making it hard for them to see anything. So Chan asks how they'll know they're on the right path, but Sang-hyuk just tells him to stay on guard, because that's where most people get lost and are devoured by monsters. Lilith already starts complaining that she's hungry, asking for ice cream. The monarch says again that he'll buy it when they're done there, and so she won't complain anymore. He promises to buy like 10. Lilith is happy with the amount of ice cream, asking him to keep his promise. Aware that she isn't human, Su-chan wants to know why he brought a child, but the monarch tells him not to worry. Sang-hyuk says there's something he wants to check. The haze continues through the labyrinth, making it harder to see anything ahead. The necromancer thinks it's already been 2 hours since they left, but still hasn't seen anything. He asks if they finally arrived or how far it is, but there's nothing but haze. Desperate, he calls for Sang-hyuk. Su-chan looks all around for him. There's only dust, which scares him. He keeps shouting for the monarch. Worried, the necromancer wants to know what noise he heard and calls once again for the Crimson Warrior. He asks why the guy isn't answering him. Something catches his attention. Su-chan finally finds Sang-hyuk, but the sight leaves him even more terrified. The masked monarch is badly hurt. Su-chan asks what happened and who did this to him. He calls out once again, hoping for an answer. The monarch's eyes light up. From the armor, a kind of tail comes out. The razor-sharp tip goes straight toward the necromancer's eyes. Before anything could happen, an energy ball hits the creature. The monarch and Lilith finally show up. Sang-hyuk reminds him he warned him to stay on guard. He explains they're inside the labyrinth and have no idea what's going to happen. Even Lilith scolds him, telling the man to be more careful. The 3 of them keep moving through the labyrinth. Finally, they find something that seems to interest Sang-hyuk. Su-chan asks if that's what he was looking for, and the masked guy says the hardest part of the dungeon is finding the entrance. Sang-hyuk reveals that when he was in Eternal World, it took him 2 to 3 weeks to find it. and he only managed it after getting a tip from an NPC in the nearby village. He lights the torch with the blue flame. Sang-hyuk hands it to the necromancer, who looks confused. The monarch tells him to keep walking and he'll find more of those lamps, explaining that he should only light the 3rd, 4th, and 7th lamp. Suchan asks if that way they'll be able to see the entrance, and Sang-hyuk confirms, saying it's simple. The necromancer asks why he's doing it instead of him, and the monarch explains there's something else to do. Sang-hyuk warns that no matter what happens he mustn't get distracted, just light the lamps. The way he says it makes the necromancer worried. Anyway, Sang-hyuk leaves together with Lilith. He quickly finds the next lamp. Suchan keeps track of the order, passing the 2nd lamp along the way, and finally reaching the 3rd. The necromancer remembers Sang-hyuk saying to light this one. A loud sound ends up startling him. He grits his teeth wanting to know what that was. Suchan is scared, not understanding what that noise is, but he remembers Sang-hyuk's warning not to get distracted and just light the lamps. That makes him focus on the mission again. Suchan yells that he doesn't know what's going on, but he's going to do what the monarch asked. The necromancer starts running, but more strange sounds can be heard, making him stop to see what it is. Suchan starts running again, going faster than before and reaching the next object. The necromancer thinks there must be a reason Sang-hyuk told him not to get distracted, so he wants to hurry. Finally, the hooded one reaches the 7th lamp and rushes to light it. Finally, the job is done. That seems to have worked on something. Suchan notices the fog is fading. That finally lets him see the place better, and what he sees leaves Suchan shocked. The necromancer spots a golden pyramid. He wonders if this is the Great Labyrinth. Someone asks why he took so long. Sang-hyuk and Lilith stand over the monsters' bodies, making the hooded guy stammer out his name. He's amazed, wanting to know what all of this is, and Sang-hyuk answers by asking what he thought he'd be doing. The monarch says that either way, the man should take advantage of it, and get ready, because there are still plenty of creatures left. Suchan is pretty shocked by that, and he even asks for some time to prepare. From far away, all you can see are explosions. Something is waiting behind the golden door. Sang-hyuk is the first to go in, followed by the others, who do the same. Finally, they're inside the Great Labyrinth. After subduing all the monsters outside, the 3 of them climb the spiral staircase. Suchan comments that the place is surprisingly quiet, but Sang-hyuk tells him to be careful, warning there are lots of traps. He reveals he wasn't able to figure them all out, so he warns they pop up out of nowhere and you have to stay alert. Suchan just says he's expecting that. The necromancer thinks they're just video game traps and wonders how hard they can be. Behind him, arrows fly toward him, but the hooded guy dodges before getting hit, so he gets his answer. Sang-hyuk once again tells him to be careful, and he says he can handle it. Another trap is triggered, almost crushing the hooded guy's head. Sang-hyuk says he just made a really funny noise, and that he's never seen anyone scream like that. Suchan won't stop setting off traps, one worse than the next, but he still manages to get out of them. That only makes his situation more complicated. Suchan is irritated from dealing with so many traps. He takes back everything he said. The necromancer says he's not looking forward to any of this and asks if he's going to make it out alive. Another door is opened by them. At the moment, they need to choose one more. Sang-hyuk says the stone chamber maze is the easiest part of the Great Labyrinth. The monarch says that to launch an attack, they just need to follow a few simple rules. They have to choose one of the 2 doors with 30 tries, and if they can't find the exit, they'll have to start over. Suchan understands they need to get out of there within those tries. Then something makes him worried. There are a bunch of scary monsters in there. Sang-hyuk says that if they pick the wrong door, they'll have to deal with the problem of fighting the creatures. Suchan says it's nothing his kids can't help with. A magenta streak shoots past him. Lilith flies straight at the monsters, dodging their attacks easily. The little princess slips past the irritated creatures. Suchan asks what the girl is doing, and the monarch tells him to hold his breath, if he doesn't want to embarrass himself and leave the hooded guy confused. Lilith keeps weaving between the monsters. The girl has fun with how slow they are, not being able to catch her. She circles around them, leaving a trail of light. The creatures are confused about what's happening. Seeing nothing but a streak of light, one of them gets knocked to the ground. All the others get knocked down right after. Watching, Suchan comments that he suspected those horns on her head must be real. Then he asks the monarch if she's a night witch. The necromancer also wants to know how he managed to bring one, since that's really hard. Sang-hyuk brought Lilith to check 2 things. First, her abilities being used on the monsters, and the other is to make her grow using the life fluid of the defeated creatures. Lilith defeated all the monsters. She complains that everything was over so fast. The princess asks if he'll give her ice cream now. Sang-hyuk just looks thoughtful. At least he knows her abilities work on monsters. But there's something else. He'll have to wait and see if she's going to grow. Other, even fiercer monsters show up. This time Suchan orders his children to have some fun. The piles of bones fight the orcs. Sang-hyuk watches the battle. The invasion of the Great Labyrinth happened without any problems. Lilith had fun kicking it all off. Suchan took command with his skeleton army, and that's how they defeated all the monsters scattered around the place. The trio continues the mission, going even deeper into the Great Labyrinth. Suchan asks if this is it, the place where the red-eyed Shikiri boss is. Sang-hyuk says he'll show up when they break the crystal. The necromancer wants to know if he's stronger than him, And the masked guy says if he's lucky, the man might beat him, or might not. Suo-chan says that didn't tell him anything, even with the monarch saying that's the truth. Sang-hyuk says the creature is an attack-type boss, not a monster he fought alone. The necromancer asks if he defeated it alone, and the monarch confirms it. Suo-chan says he's his friend but makes it clear he's a show-off. Then he asks if they can start. But Sang-hyuk surprises him by asking him to stay out of this, because he wants to face the boss alone. But the monarch says there's something else he wants the man to do, which makes Suo-chan curious. People walk around while using their phones. At that moment, they get something that makes their eyes go wide. As always, the news spreads everywhere, leaving whoever reads it pretty impressed. At school, one of the students yells, saying it's something they won't believe. He tells them to check Xtube right away. Everyone grabs their phones. The video that shook the world is the fight between the masked monarch and the red-eyed Shikiri. They really can't believe what's happening. Sang-hyuk walks toward the crystal. The item is floating between the tips of small pyramids. Finally, he's close to the object. Without waiting any longer, he aims at it, and when it breaks, it releases smoke the same color. The monarch waits for the result of what he did. A terrifying voice asks, "Who dares disturb my sleep?" The creature reveals itself, threatening that he'll pay for what he did with his own life. While pulling something from his dimensional pocket, Sang-hyuk talks about how the creature is still using the same old line. The seal is a transformation spell used to teleport to a chosen location. With shining eyes, the monarch explains that's because he was trapped there. So he's kindly going to take the boss out to get some air. All of them are wrapped in an aura, and just like that, they're teleported to another place, leaving the dungeon completely empty. The video goes all over the internet, a live stream of the masked monarch versus the red-eyed Shikiri, and obviously nobody is going to miss this showdown. Out in the field, the two stare each other down. The boss looks a little confused with the Lel, and glares furiously at the pair. Suo-chan is the one in charge of the live stream, and he figures that outside there won't be any trouble getting reception. And he wonders when the other guy even had time to think of that. Anyway, the big guy declares the monarch's end, making his eyes glow. He fires a laser that the player easily dodges. Sang-hyuk builds momentum to attack. At least he knows the first phase attack pattern of the red-eyed Shikiri is really simple. The creature fires more beams. Sang-hyuk dodges all those glowing orbs, so his next step is to close in and go for close quarters combat. Soon the monarch lands a hit on the boss, but the monster uses a shield. Unfortunately, the shield around Shikiri's body is strong. It can withstand more than 10 attacks from the highest-ranked players. Sang-hyuk realizes nothing will work unless you have an item that lets you use the blink spell 10 times, but as far as he knows, that doesn't exist. Still, he has his own way of dealing with it. When the shield breaks, the second phase begins. An explosion happens as the creature goes through a transformation. Little by little, the monster starts to appear. Then it yells, "Tremble in fear, you imbeciles." The centaur Shikiri has 3 attack patterns. The first is stomping the ground with its heavy hooves, which causes massive destruction. It has fear and includes a stun effect, so you have to be careful. Then it starts the second attack pattern called Area of Effect, holding its swords and slicing everything in its path to pieces. Finally, the third one, when it gets to this stage you should just run. Sang-hyuk quickly dodges before taking a headbutt from the monster. As a result, Shikiri will be stunned for 5 seconds. Sang-hyuk says he's sure everyone knows what to do there. Then he jumps, gripping his sword for the attack. The monarch aims toward the boss and then fires a burst at the creature, making it lose its head. Because of the huge explosion, Sang-hyuk gets thrown back, stopping a few meters away. The smoke slowly starts to clear. There's no sign of the monster anymore, only the sword left behind by Shikiri. Sang-hyuk is satisfied with that. At least the attack is complete. Everyone watching the stream is completely shocked. They can't believe what actually happened. Richard is watching the stream too. He wonders how the masked guy managed to beat Shikiri so easily. Even Harry comments, saying he knew the player was strong. He just didn't know he was stronger than he thought. But the commander wants to know why the masked guy decided to do a live stream. Richard says the Great Labyrinth resets as a new dungeon, even after it's cleared, so Shikiri isn't gone forever and can be fought again. Harry wants more details, but then the Golden Knight's phone starts ringing. As soon as he answers, the person on the other end says the fish man has appeared, leaving Richard shaken as they say they believe the underwater kingdom of Ennis has started to materialize. Harry wants to understand what's going on. Richard starts talking about the underwater kingdom of Ennis, just like the underground kingdom of Lahaki, and to make it worse, the sky island of Braheim. Then he asks Harry what he thinks will happen if all those dungeons materialize, but the commander says that's impossible. Harry just stays quiet about it. The knight says he's only sure of one thing: the monarch won't be able to clear everything alone. Then he comes to a conclusion about the broadcast, that the masked guy is trying to tell the players that everyone needs to get stronger together. On the phone screen is the ugliest monster ever seen. This was sent to Sang-hyuk's phone. Sang-min shows up and asks what that is. A monster he's never seen before. Sang-hyuk says creatures started showing up in Eternal World after he died. He explains there was a psychopath who crossed humans with monsters to create new hybrids. The kid gets curious about the mixed breeds. Sang-min can't even say what he thinks, but his brother confirms he's right. Sang-hyuk had forgotten that the one responsible for it came back to the real world, and his name is Edgar Gonzalez. The village near the mountain seems like a peaceful place, but it's completely filled with monsters. Sang-hyuk is in the area too, watching what they're doing. In a meeting, the decision is to stop the Mexican immediately. After all, he attacked several villages in a single month, and even though he's an NPC, he could end up sabotaging the mission. Michael keeps shouting that the guy is even using players as his test subjects, which is a serious problem. He says they need to hurry and even put up a bounty if they have to catch Gonzalez. The monarch remembers the past. When the location of the crossing was found, Sang-hyuk asks where it is, but the woman says that kind of info is expensive. With a smile, Jae says he can give him a discount this time. Sang-hyuk just pays with an attack, knocking the person to the ground, revealing he isn't Jae. The man says he thought he'd found the perfect hiding place, but realized nobody can hide from the monarch, which is a shame. Then he smiles and says he wants to use him as an experiment in his test. Grabbing his sword, Sang-hyuk declares he needs to be deleted from the world. The monarch looks thoughtful about that. The woman announces his arrival by saying he got there early. Jae asks how the photo turned out, and if he looked good. But Sang-hyuk gets straight to it, asking if she knows where the man is, and she says they're still investigating. The blonde says that since the first hybrid was found in Japan, her guess is he's there. The monarch looks thoughtful about that. He asks if he can talk to Hasegawa Ryota on the phone. In Tokyo, the master is told there's a call from the Dark Chamber of Commerce. A member of the Ghost Sword Forest Guild looks at the phone screen. Then he answers the call. Sang-hyuk gets straight to it, asking if he knows Edgar Gonzalez. Recognizing the voice, Ryota asks if it's the monarch, but the masked man doesn't want to chat and asks if he knew the guy is in Japan. Sang-hyuk says he doesn't have much time and asks again if he knew that. With not much choice, Ryota just denies knowing. Then before hanging up, the monarch just says he's going to pay the man a visit. Ryota is left speechless. Meanwhile, Jae asks if the masked man is really going to Japan, and he confirms it. Sang-hyuk says either way, he's got a few things to take care of. Like he said, his trip is to Tokyo, Japan. The monarch visits an establishment. Sang-hyuk tells Kurihara Ayane it's been a while since they last saw each other. There were lots of tattoo artists in Eternal World. These people can put special powers into their tattoos. Usually they use magic ink to draw them, but Ayane uses monster fluid, so her tattoos have unique abilities. The woman asks what the famous masked monarch wants with her, but he just says she already knows why. Sang-hyuk asks why she doesn't want to join his guild. Ayane says she's honored by the offer coming from the master himself, and the monarch tells her to say what she wants because he'll get it. She says that's really tempting, but the thing is she needs several ingredients. But the problem is she's Japanese. Because of that, she says the public won't be happy seeing her in the guild. Sang-hyuk asks if she's rejecting him, but she says she doesn't know. She says he's asking her to betray her own country, and asks if he shouldn't make a more attractive offer. So Sang-hyuk comes up with an even better idea, which Ayane waits for eagerly. The monarch then offers the fluid of the Demon King Bale, and that's all she asks for. People walk through the city without worrying about what's happening around them, but a strange scream makes them stop. Suddenly, mixed blood monsters appear, causing chaos as everyone starts running. Ryota is the only one who stays still. He studies the situation ahead. Soon the creatures show themselves to him. Ryota dodges the beam fired at him, and also avoids getting grabbed. The monster keeps using its forearms to attack him. Ryota manages to leap back several times, getting away from it. Then he catches the creature off guard, landing quick slashes with his sword. As a result, the monster is cut into several pieces. Ryota easily defeats the mixed blood. From one of the buildings, Gonzalez watches the chaos caused by his monsters. He smiles, satisfied seeing the phantom swordsman ready to have some fun. It's a nice day in Japan. Outside, the house is protected by security guards, all of them on high alert. The door is opened immediately. Ryota is having a moment of meditation. He opens his eyes, greeting his guest. Sang-hyuk is there, just like he said on the call. The masked man stares at him and says it's the first time the two of them have met face to face. Tea is being served. Ryota blows on the steam from the hot drink. Then he looks ahead, noticing the monarch is still staring at him. Ryota asks if he doesn't like tea, which is a shame since he went through the trouble of making a really good batch. Sang-hyuk gets straight to it and asks if he investigated the interbreeder. Ryota goes quiet for a moment. Then he answers that they're still looking. The monarch says Gonzalez is somewhere around his country, and yet the man is telling him he still hasn't found him. He says he's disappointed in the Forest of the Sword Ghost Guild. Ryota apologizes and says he doesn't have the full backing of the Dark Chamber of Commerce like he does, so Sang-hyuk has no choice but to help him. He explains that the monsters inside dungeons have unique mana from the yin dimension, but the problem is that this dimension can get too full and explode. He says they call that overflow. Ryota realizes that's not a good thing. Then he asks why the masked guy is telling him this, and Sang-hyuk says he noticed an impossible-to-raid dungeon appeared near the Emperor's palace. Impressed, the man asks if he means Hard's playground. Sang-hyuk just gives him 3 days for him to bring the interbreeder, and if he fails, the masked guy says he'll leave it to his imagination what will happen. That makes Ryota pretty nervous. A party is happening in the city. It's an awards ceremony. The old man is really enjoying the moment. Then someone calls for the congressman. He congratulates him on the Outstanding Legislator Award. The old man thanks him and says that since it was an award given to him by the people, he'll work even harder to serve the country. His bodyguard calls him, warning him it's time for the next meeting. They leave the party and head down to the parking lot. Something catches the congressman's attention. Then he realizes someone is coming closer. On the car ride, he's told that the masked monarch is in the country. But the masked guy's arrival was already expected by the congressman. Ryota says he needs to get rid of the interbreeder immediately, or the monarch could cause an overflow in Harta. The congressman says he seems pretty worried about the player. He also doesn't believe the other guy is capable of causing an overflow, saying there's no need to give in to the masked guy's demands. But Ryota is still worried. He says that if the old man can't get rid of the interbreeder, he'll do it himself. The congressman doesn't seem worried about that, and asks if he forgot the reason for the meeting. The man says Japan is too old to face reality and start this new generation. He says they live in an era where someone can draw attention just with a sword, and asks how long they're supposed to keep messing up to protect people. But Ryota says even so, the interbreeder isn't an answer, and that there are other ways, and asks if he didn't say he wanted to surpass the masked monarch. The congressman says the interbreeder told him something, that he'll take care of the masked guy, which means they don't need to worry. That's why he asks the guildmaster not to worry. Smiling, the congressman says that when he moves up in the rankings, he'll secure his future, so he demands that the player just do his job. There's nothing else Ryota can say, so their trip continues. The 3-day deadline ends. Several guards are protecting the residents, all ready to defend their master, in large numbers, and also spread all over the grounds. Ryota is there among them too. The man looks pretty worried. He remembers the talk with the old man telling him everything will go in their favor. The congressman said that if an overflow happened, they could put all the blame on the monarch, but he tells him to stay ready near the palace to protect the emperor. Ryota asks about the people, but the old man tells him to forget them. He says the higher the body count, the bigger the punishment for the masked monarch. That didn't sit well with the player at all. His phone starts ringing. Ryota jumps and immediately grabs the device. Someone is calling from an unknown number, making him even more suspicious about all of this. He decides not to answer the call. The phone finally stops ringing. Ryota looks at the strange structure, really different from the buildings around it. Suddenly everything starts shaking. Soon he understands this has to do with the masked guy. The creatures run, making everything shake. They're big, fierce, terrifying animals. The chimeras have 3 heads, lion, snake, and goat, and they also have wings, making them even more terrifying. Sang-hyuk and Ayane watch everything from the building. The tattoo artist asks if he's sure about this, because this will cause a huge storm. Masked Monarch says he warned them, and they ended up ignoring it, declaring that everyone has to pay the price. An explanation of what overflow is pretty simple. It's a phenomenon that happens when the monster's mana gets super saturated, which is why they clear dungeons multiple times. Knowing how it works, a player can cause an overflow artificially. For example, drawing a mana boost tattoo on the Night Witch, like the one Ayane did, immediately causing an effect on Lilith, which ended up triggering an explosion in the dungeon. People near the place saw the moment it happened, getting pretty scared by that, and immediately panicking about the monsters. An explosion of several winged chimeras. That way it can cause an overflow even if there aren't enough monsters. People scream in panic, and immediately start running away from the creatures. From far away, Ryota watches the building. People run past him, scared. The man understands what made that happen. At that moment, he gets a call from the congressman. Moriyasu Yasuhito happily says an overflow happened just like the guildmaster said it would. He asks how things are in the city, and Ryota talks about the people. But the old man doesn't care, because the victims will bring benefits for him. Moriyasu Yasuhito tells him to think of it as a sacrifice for their future. Ryota doesn't seem to like that much. Meanwhile, explosions happen in the buildings. People run in desperation to save their lives, some pushing others in panic. Because of that, the woman falls to the ground. She doesn't even have time to get up, because a monster is already behind her. All she can do is scream, but her end doesn't come. A voice says they'll take care of it. Ryota orders them to protect the citizens. The guild is ready to take down the monsters. They use their swords against the chimeras. Even though there are a lot of monsters, they push themselves, attacking one head at a time. A creature tries to catch Ryota off guard with an attack, but the swordsman is faster and more dangerous. He could take it out with just a look. Then his phone starts ringing again. This time it's the masked monarch. Ryota answers saying they'd already finished their conversation, but Sang-hyuk surprises him by saying he'll give him another chance. For that, the swordsman needs to say where the interbreeder is. The monsters try to take advantage and attack from behind, but Ryota is paying attention to everything and easily defeats them. He says he'll send the location by text, but Sang-hyuk wants one more thing, and he suggests the swordsman cut ties with the person behind all this. One of his men calls him. Something's wrong with the chimeras, and they're going back to the dungeon, leaving all of them surprised by that. Meanwhile, Sang-hyuk has more things to do, counting on Ayane's help for that. The woman compliments the invisibility cloak, and he says that if she needs one, he has plenty more, making her happy. The tattoo artist says she understands why he came looking for her, because after using the night witches to put the chimeras to sleep, he needs her to draw a tattoo to control them, making it look like it was the masked one who created the overflow. Sang-hyuk says he could create one if he wanted, but he couldn't let innocent citizens get hurt. Ayane says she had no idea he had such a strong sense of justice. She also asks what he meant about the person behind everything. The woman asks if there's someone pulling the strings behind the ghost swordsman. Sang-hyuk knows everything that's happening about the guild's involvement with the congressman, because the meeting between the two was being watched, and everything photographed, so he knows Ryota is working with a powerful man. Jae asks what Sang-hyuk wants to do, and warns that if he isn't careful, this could turn into an international problem. Sang-hyuk thinks about what to do, so the solution is simple. He says he'll let Japan deal with its own problem. With the memories ending, Sang-hyuk returns to reality. The monarch answers Ayane, saying it's nothing she needs to know. The village is empty, with the lights on showing that people are sheltered in their homes. The mad scientist lab is around there, where his mixed-breed monsters are made. Gonzalez is working on some project. Suddenly something catches his attention. He turns and says it's been a long time since they've seen each other, and that he's very happy about the reunion. To have the masked monarch there, who in turn has a furious glint in his eyes. Sang-hyuk stares at the mad scientist. The monarch says they're in the real world and asks why the man didn't choose to live a quiet life, and he answers that he tried, but it didn't work out. Gonzalez invites them to take a look at his masterpieces. Sang-hyuk just says the man is still crazy, and drawing his sword he says he won't feel guilty when he gets rid of him. Gonzalez isn't very happy with his answer. The scientist just calmly takes a cigar, lighting it right after, even with the masked one's threat. Gonzalez acts like nothing is happening. Finally he says something, sounding regretful because he wanted to leave more of his work behind. He tells the masked guy not to be too disappointed. With a gun pointed, Gonzalez tells him not to worry because another version of him will take his place. The masked monarch tries to stop him from pulling the gun, but the mad scientist doesn't care. So before he can be stopped he pulls the trigger, leaving both of them pretty shocked. Sang-hyuk gets pissed about it too. The news about what happened has already spread, about the overflow at Hardy's playground from an impossible-to-raid dungeon in Tokyo. It also reports that there were no victims recorded. Everything seems calm around the house, but the red liquid on the floor is a sign that something isn't right. Moriyasu Yasuhito is collapsing to the ground, having his passage made to the other world. The news of the congressman's death is already splashed across the newspapers. Ryota is reading the latest news, running into that information, which makes him smile happily. Back on Korean soil, Sang-hyuk arrives at the airport. The guy looks around until he finds what he's looking for. Jae is there waiting for him. The woman waves at him. She tells him about the congressman's death. Jae says they reported that he made his own passage to the other world, but she doesn't believe it, while the masked guy says it's punishment for his sins. Sang-hyuk says Gonzalez said something weird before he died, that the lunatic talked about a new version of himself taking his place, and asks if she knows anything about that. Jae isn't sure about it. Even so, Sang-hyuk asks her to track the scientist's latest whereabouts, promising to pay whatever she wants. The woman agrees and also says she has a feeling that isn't the only reason he called. Then the monarch reveals he's looking for someone. She says that's easy and wants to know who it is. Sang-hyuk wants to find the mad alchemist. The streets of Hong Kong are quiet, but in an alley there's a sale going on for an illegal product made using a monster's body. The seller says taking it before a fight can boost physical and mental abilities without causing side effects. He even offers to let the buyer try it if he doesn't trust him. In the middle of the sale, someone asks for one. With a smile, Sang-hyuk asks why the man doesn't sell to him too. The seller gets really scared. Grabbing something from his bag, he complains, saying he was so close he throws a smoke bomb on the ground, which is annoying for the masked monarch. And the seller isn't there anymore. The man runs away from there. He thinks Sang-hyuk is a cop, not even knowing where he came from. The seller says the guy looks Korean, and then Sang-hyuk appears behind him, confirming it. That makes the man run even more desperately. Sang-hyuk tells him to calm down and asks if the man doesn't recognize him, but he's freaking out and doesn't want him getting close. The seller sees some boxes with bottles, then he throws everything at Sang-hyuk, but the monarch easily dodges it all, except one potion gets thrown in too, letting out smoke when it hits the ground. The man didn't mean to kill Sang-hyuk, but the monarch appears behind him, telling him not to worry because he's alive. Panicking, the seller asks who he is and what he wants. Sang-hyuk once again asks if he doesn't recognize him without the mask. Then he brings his hand to his face, putting the mask on to cover himself, and asks one more time. The masked monarch greets the mad alchemist. He opens his mouth, stunned, finally realizing who the man in front of him is. On a ship out at sea, the military watch what's in front of them. There's an island there that they don't remember existing in that spot. The captain orders them to contact the situation room. In a desperate tone, someone calls him to warn that the island is moving. The 200 blue carrots are handed over. Sang-hyuk asks if he can make 200 potions in the same day. That leaves the guy pretty shocked. Alchemy skill increased by 100. Then as he works, it reaches 300. Sang-hyuk says he needs the ironhide potion, and asks what ingredients are needed. With all that work, the alchemist skill went up to 500. More orders came after that, with Sang-hyuk wanting an earth potion, then the corrupted power one, a mana refill potion. when he brought ingredients for the fierce attack one. That way the man hit max level and earned the title of Mad Alchemist. The alchemist says he worked for him for 3 years like a slave. He also says he couldn't sleep or eat, only work on alchemy every day, and asks if the masked guy has any idea how hard it all was. Sang-hyuk asks if it isn't hard to make and sell corpse potions, and the man defends himself, saying he needs to make a living. Because of the noise, the flight attendant asks them to keep it down a bit. The rest of the trip goes smoothly. The alchemist makes it very clear that even though he followed them there, if he isn't paid well, he'll go back, and Sang-hyuk tells him not to worry about that. While they're walking, someone calls out to the masked guy. It's Sang-min, waiting for his arrival. Sang-hyuk introduces Michael Chang to his brother, like he'd mentioned before. The kid says he's heard a lot about him, and can't even believe he can make 100 potions in a day, and the alchemist says that's thanks to someone. Changing the subject, Sang-min asks his brother if he saw the news. The kid is surprised he doesn't know what's going on. Before he can say anything, the news reports that several players are gathering in one place. They heard that even in the game, the island suddenly appeared in the middle of the Pacific one day, and nobody knows the exact date of the event. The players are calling it the start of the festival, so Sang-hyuk wonders if it's the mysterious island. Once every decade, the island may or may not appear, and if it does, it will disappear after 30 days. Because the whole place is a dungeon, and players can earn points during an event. The points can be used to buy items that are legendary level or higher from the merchants who live there. It's one of the biggest events. Eternal World players can't miss. That's why everyone rushed over there. The players can't believe the mysterious island really appeared in the real world. One of them asks if that means the same could happen with the magic castle and the city in the sky. Manuel isn't sure about that, but he believes probably yes. People are pretty excited. Ian comments that this is basically an Eternal World festival. The Crimson Witch asks if he picked a dungeon to invade, but he says he wants to enjoy the place a bit. Jay tells him to take this more seriously, and the man says it looks like she's already made up her mind. The witch confirms that yes, they live in a world where power is valued, and when it comes to the mysterious island, it's all about a big battle. People are gathered in the arena, excited about the fight that's happening. A player is battling the monsters. There's a big screen showing the timer, only 2 seconds left until everything ends, and it doesn't take long for that to happen. At the end of round 4, he got 340 points. Some kids are disappointed that Red Claw only lasted that long. Someone tells them to keep it down. When they turn around, they come face to face with Luo, complaining she can't focus. Even though she's pretty, she scares them. It doesn't take long for them to recognize the Guildmaster of 9 Dragons. They remember she had the best record, lasting 23 rounds. One of the kids notices something. Then he says her record is about to be broken, because it's the Sun Knight's turn. The man has a serious look like always. Then a memory from the past comes back. In some battle that happened in Eternal World, Richard Paulson is pretty beat up from the intense fight. On the ground, his partner, his life taken, he's gotten stronger since that day. As soon as the round starts, the monster roars as it charges at him. But with just one strike, Richard splits it in 2. He looks around, searching for more enemies, easily taking down the other monsters that decided to attack him. One even tries to surprise him from behind, but with just a spin, he hits the big red one. Soon more orcs show up carrying their weapons, but they end up hitting nothing. That's because the knight made a huge jump, building momentum and then using his Blade of the Sun skill, hitting the circle of monsters that had formed. Then all the monsters were wiped out, clearing round 1. Immediately the gate opens. More monsters come out, starting round 2. Richard Paulson just waits for them to come, ready to crush all the monsters. He remembers hearing something, that the masked monarch had the record of 29 rounds, and he plans to break it. In round 3, he shows no mercy to his enemies, taking it very seriously. He makes it to 8, shocking everyone when he reaches round 15. Still full of energy, he makes it to 21. The people in the arena cheer with happiness, except Luo, who isn't very happy that her record is about to be broken soon. She thinks that apparently the guy has gotten the hang of the masked monarch. Richard uses the sun's blessing. Round 28 ended, and he's pretty out of breath. There are still 10 minutes left until everything ends. The boys are surprised he's in round 29, about to break the monarch's record. They notice a knight entering the arena. The boys feel like they know him. A voice comes up behind the boy and explains it's the captain of the Holy Knights of the Order of the Great God. The man also says he's at the very top above the Holy Knights of the 13 Orders of Roselia, known as the Holy Executioner Adelio. He says he's the strongest on the island, and that not even the masked monarch managed to defeat him. Richard is face to face with Adelio. The Golden Knight is tired because of the earlier fights. He reaches into the pocket of his armor, pulling out a vial with red liquid, then he immediately drinks it. It takes effect on him, and he's surrounded by an intense golden aura. Richard is back in fighting shape, and before he can do anything, the saint charges at him, making the knight use his sword to defend himself. Adelio is way too strong for him. From the impact, Richard gets thrown back. He uses his strength to stop himself. Adelio manages to surprise him, appearing behind him. The executioner's sword is just a few centimeters from his neck, leaving the crowd in total shock. The Holy Executioner checks what happened, but ends up surprised in the end. Richard barely managed to defend with his sword. He holds firm on defense. managing to break through and dodge. Adelio uses his shield to defend against the power. Everyone is focused on the fight. The blonde guy stays there watching everything. Michael looks worried seeing this. Holy Executioner is really strong, and Richard is struggling to avoid getting hit. He looks for another item in his pocket. The knight takes out the value scroll, and without wasting time, he tears it right away, gaining 5 strength, health, and agility each. An upgrade to keep fighting. For him, the problem is the shield that blocks his attacks. Richard also knows he lowers his guard right before landing a hit, so he only has one chance, and he'll do whatever it takes to surpass the masked monarch. The two face off once again, causing a huge explosion of sand. People get hit by the dust. Even so, Michael is paying attention. Just like Luo, who doesn't seem affected by the smoke. You can see Richard standing. He's really out of breath and tired, but unbelievably he's still standing. Something is wrong with him. His eyes start to close, then the knight collapses to the ground. But his enemy wasn't defeated. The Holy Executioner is still alive. Like this, the player can't continue the challenge, so round 29 failed. The boys don't understand what happened, and can't believe he passed out. They think his body couldn't handle the scroll, since he took a full dose of a substance before, which is a shame since he almost made it. Right away the medics pick the man up. The battlefield gets cleared so the next one can start. Now it's the masked monarch's turn, which makes the crowd scared, making them think what they're seeing isn't real. Either way, the next fight is going to happen, with the player masked monarch. Nobody was expecting this one. Soon round 1 begins. For those not watching the fight, they take advantage of the fair. Ayeni is one of those people. All of a sudden someone asks her if she's going to buy something. It's Sang-min, the Sunset Swordsman, and she's surprised he can speak Japanese. The boy explains he got that name from his brother to keep his identity secret, and that he studied Japanese. Ayeni asks where the others are, and he explains they're earning points. Yang Su-chan and Butcher are in the lava dungeon. As for Michael Chang, he just said he was going to the casino. Ayeni comments that everyone's having fun, and the boy says everyone wants to make the most of what the mysterious island offers. After all, if you have points, you can take advantage of the limited chance to get lots of rare items, and she agrees with that. Sang-min asks if there's any item she wants, but she says she's not a player who gets involved in attacking, and since the monarch has what he needs, she's just going to have fun. Then the Sunset Swordsman invites her to watch the big battle by his side. Ayane asks if something fun is happening, and he confirms it, and bets it's the main event of the place. She decides to trust what he says. Meanwhile, Richard is still in the infirmary, still unconscious since he passed out. Little by little he starts waking up. Even with the damage he took, he manages to get up. Still confused, he tries hard to remember what happened and how he ended up there. Figuring out the moment he lost consciousness, Richard thinks his body couldn't handle the effects. A creature shows up behind him, noticing the man is awake. It says he got 3,240 points for making it to round 28. It also explains he can use them during the event period to buy stuff in the shops. The creature tells him to enjoy it, but Richard is pissed because he didn't listen to him. He hears a weird noise, running straight to the arena. Richard is shocked by what he sees. The masked monarch is in the arena fighting, but that's not the only thing that blows his mind. It's the fact that Adelio is on the ground. Like that, the monarch finishes round 29, and the final stage starts right away, where he's already dodging the big guy's attack. He's bigger than the Holy Executioner, and he's even faster. The masked monarch manages to hit him in the face, which pisses the creature off, and it immediately gets ready to attack, firing a laser beam at Sang-hyuk, and he gets thrown against the wall, but he gets back up right away to keep fighting. The monarch charges in, going all out. He's determined to win, hitting his opponent over and over. Because of the smoke screen, the crowd can't tell what's going on. They also get hit by the blast of air. Even Richard is impressed by all of it, and he realizes the monarch is on another level. Sang-hyuk stays strong in the fight. He gets ready to use Dragon Blood Awakening. The creature seems to sense the danger. Either way, the monarch goes all in. It's been a while since he used the powerful skill Dragon Blade. The masked monarch basically goes right through him. And just like that, the final round ends, and the people in the arena go crazy. The Golden Knight is left speechless. Sang-hyuk went past his own limit, but he doesn't have time to think about it, because a dark stain appears on his hand, taking him to an unknown place. A voice says, "Praise be to the hero of Mystery Island." The old man says he's been waiting for him for a long time, and says he has the right to own everything. This weirdo says he has something for Sang-hyuk, and then a book appears, and tells the hero to choose. However, he can only choose one. That's the rule he has to follow. Sang-hyuk flips through the pages, carefully looking at each item, until something really catches his attention. It's the Transcendence Potion, so he chooses that as his prize. With a smile, the stranger says he supports his choice. Then the potion just appears for Sang-hyuk, and he grabs it and drinks it right away. The effect kicks in right away in his body, and a light appears on his chest. Sang-hyuk goes through some kind of dimensional trip, and sure enough, he's back on the battlefield. People are also shouting about his victory. Then Sang-hyuk realizes something is different. He immediately turns to see what it is, his eyes going wide at what he finds, because his level jumped to 301. He gives a happy smile at that, because he finally went past the max level, somewhere in a city in Russia. The painter works on another piece, carefully using red paint to make the flowers. He stays focused while he paints, until his artwork is finished. A bolt of lightning appears in the middle of the painting. Then the canvas explodes, breaking into a bunch of pieces. The painter manages to recover one part. He wonders if that's as far as he can go. Suddenly his phone starts ringing. He immediately picks it up to check. He gets suspicious when he sees it's an international number. Going to some city in Germany. Smoke comes out of the chimney. Inside the factory, the work keeps going. The girl is focused on what she's doing. But even so, a sound manages to catch her attention. She turns to see what it is. Right away, the girl opens a drawer, revealing there's a gun inside, which she quickly grabs and goes to check what it is. There's an intruder in the place. She tries to snoop around to figure out where he is, walking on tiptoes so she won't make any noise. The girl manages to catch the invader off guard and tells him not to take another step. She asks what he's doing there. With no choice, the intruder gives up. Chol-woo says he knows he should have knocked, but he really wanted to surprise her. The woman stares at him for a few seconds. Then she finally recognizes the blacksmith. Finally back in Seoul, at the Masked One's castle. All the buildings have been finished. Meanwhile, the players move around the place calmly. There's one very specific spot there, where a conversation is happening, with a player saying the Demon King is going to show up. Michael says he didn't expect that, because he thought the monarch had cleared the round. The girl just says they shouldn't have invited a crazy bastard, which makes the alchemist mad. She still threatens to take his life if he keeps talking. Dina Kruger makes it clear she made the gun, so she knows how to use it. Scared, Michael asks how she got a gun in there, and she says there are plenty of ways to do that. Finally, someone interrupts them, saying they get how happy they are to see each other, but they should save the greetings for later. The blacksmith keeps talking, saying the problem is that when Bale shows up, it'll be hard for the monarch to face him alone, so they need help. Looking worn out, the painter asks if the tattoo artist is there. Chul-woo asks if he means Ana, but either way he confirms it and wants to know if there's something going on between the two of them. Andre says they both use enchantment. He does it on objects, while tattoo artists use it on living things. He says if they share knowledge with each other and look for new ways, he feels they can find something better. The blacksmith says he'll get in touch with her the next day, and says if anyone needs anything, just tell him. Dina says first she'd like to know what the monarch is thinking. Chul-woo gets ready to speak. Then he reveals that he said he wants a weapon, which leaves all three of them surprised. At the southern tip of the Aegean Sea, in Crete, from the destruction of the place you can tell a battle happened there, along with the dead monsters on the ground. Someone keeps pounding on the golden door. It's the masked monarch doing another cleanup, wiping out his enemies without a shred of mercy. More monsters show up to attack him, pretty vicious, charging in with their weapons. Lilith also helps in the fight, using her influence over the monsters and her speed to take them down. The girl is finding it all fun. Sang-hyuk says he feels like she's eating too much, but the princess claims she's still hungry. Lilith says she's going to grow even more and become a lady, and that's what the monarch expects. Eternal World is a place where gods and demons exist. This island used to be home to the remains of the great Minoan civilization, but ever since the Devil Temple dungeon materialized, it's been taken over by fanatics who worship the demons of Eternal World. The island's residents were evacuated to the city of Kalamata, and right now they're waiting to see who will come out on top. In the battle between humans and demons, Sang-hyuk walks alongside Lilith. The two stop in front of something. It's a huge statue of a woman with goat heads. Rank 32, Asmodeus is the Demon Lord number 72. Lilith finds something shiny that she thinks is really pretty. Sang-hyuk wants to know what it is, but the girl refuses, saying it's hers. The monarch tells her not to worry, because he's not going to take it. He promises he just wants to take a look and that he'll give it back. Lilith agrees to let him only look. Sang-hyuk recognizes it as an Asmodeus item with 100 attractiveness, and it increases the success rate of success-type skills. He realizes that even though the word divinity is in the name, the level is really low. But for Lilith, this could easily be an irreplaceable item, so he gives it back, making her happy. Right away, the girl puts on the necklace, and the stone starts to glow. Lilith is really happy with her item. Even Sang-hyuk thinks the scene is nice. The monarch says she can find more items there, inviting her to a treasure hunt. There are lots of monsters, and they scream like crazy. Even so, they're no match for the monarch. Lilith does her part too. The girl thinks it's a fun game. She zips through them like lightning, knocking them down, and Sang-hyuk chops all of them into little pieces. Lilith asks when they're going to find another item, and the monarch says he doesn't know, and that he should have found one already. Now she's finding everything boring, and the masked one asks her to wait a little longer, until everything's over. Sang-hyuk notices something different. He's careful with his steps. Anyway, he finds a corridor. Masked monarch comments that this must be it. Then he asks Lilith if she wants to wait there, but she wants to come along. While Sang-hyuk walks, the princess of the night witches flies. He says those statues look like the 72 demon lords, and even though it's not the first time he's seen them, he still finds it weird. A noise grabs both of their attention. At the entrance to the corridor there are several silhouettes. There's several creatures dressed in armor, all with a terrible look. Sang-hyuk says they're knights who turn into monsters after selling their souls. Anyway, He orders them all to come at him with everything they've got. He swings his sword, attacking those soulless ones, cutting all of them down with a single swing. Two try to catch him from behind, both with very sharp blades. But the monarch jumps. Now the masked one is even angrier, charging at the monsters and slicing everything up with his sword. Meanwhile, Lilith is just standing there. She's really excited about the fight. Sang-hyuk is landing hits on all of them. The masked guy is totally focused. He makes quick slashes as he moves between the soulless knights, cutting their bodies into several pieces, then finishing it off with an explosion. Sang-hyuk says it's time to meet the head of the house. There's someone at the top of the stairs. It's been a while since he faced Taluna, the high priest. The statues in the hallway suddenly move. Sang-hyuk has already pulled the hammer out of his dimensional pocket, and he doesn't waste time putting them to sleep again. The high priest watches everything from above, but he doesn't just stand there. He immediately raises his hand. Up above, dark spheres appear. Then he fires those things. Sang-hyuk notices right away. The spheres hit the target and explode. Taluna waits for the result of his attack, but it doesn't look like it went well. Sang-hyuk surprises him by appearing behind him. The masked guy says it's a shame they met again just to say goodbye already. Taluna feels fear just from those words. Then Sang-hyuk attacks him, putting an end to the head of the house. Part of the priest rolls down the stairs, reaching the bottom like an explosion. Sang-hyuk calmly walks down the stairs. The item is Taluna's divinity, which greatly increases the success rate of shortcut-type skills. To him it's an amazing item, fitting for a high priest. Sang-hyuk then hands it to Lilith. The girl immediately equips the item, going through yet another transformation. Happily, the girl says she suddenly feels really good. Sang-hyuk is glad she liked it, and the girl says her master is the best. A screen appears for the masked guy. His level went up to 302, something that hasn't happened in forever, and it makes him feel like crying. Sang-hyuk says they're finally done there and can go back home. Lilith asks if that means they have to take a ship and a plane again, and after he confirms, the guy asks if something's wrong. The girl asks why they need to do that, if there's a faster way, which leaves him confused. Lilith has a big smile that makes him suspicious. Then she asks if he's ready to go. But Sang-hyuk still doesn't get what the girl is thinking. He's still really confused. He looks around confused, realizing that he's suddenly somewhere else. The two of them are back at the masked guy's castle. Sang-hyuk still doesn't understand what happened, and Lilith is laughing at her little prank. Sang-hyuk calls out to her, asking how the princess managed to do that. Sang-hyuk asks if she can come back whenever she wants. Lilith confirms and explains that it's because the castle is the source of her power, so she can come back anytime and from anywhere she wants. Impressed, the masked guy asks why she didn't tell him earlier, and the girl says it's because he never asked, so there won't be any more surprises. He asks if there's anything else he still doesn't know. Then the princess explains that since she's a night witch, she can put people to sleep and visit their dreams, but he already knows that. However, Lilith says that she can actually go to where the person is. She asks for a bit of time to show how it works. 10 minutes end up passing. Richard's face is completely red like a tomato. The man is in the masked guy's castle. He's confused. And meanwhile, Sang-hyuk wants to know how it works, and Lilith says she visited the blonde guy's dream and brought him along. The monarch is curious if this can be done with people she doesn't know, but the girl says no. Still, he wants to know why she brought the knight, and Lilith says it's because it's easier to make him understand. Richard finally cuts into their conversation. The man asks the princess if she kidnapped him. He's waiting for an explanation, but Sang-hyuk wants to know if Lilith can take him into other people's dreams, but it's something she's never done, and she asks if the masked guy wants to try. The person he chooses is Chul Wu. All this talk is really getting on the knight's nerves, so Richard yells, asking what the two of them are doing. He also wants to know why he was taken from his home. Sang-hyuk surprises him by suggesting giving back the weapons of all the members of the Absolute Guild. For that, he needs to promise to keep what he saw a secret, and the items will be returned, and Richard asks if he's serious. Sang-hyuk just confirms that he is, but there are still terms. He asks if the knight knows what will happen if he breaks the promise. Abel Hangzhou Tower in China. Its entire structure is creaking. Inside, a fight is happening. Between players and the monsters, there are plenty of creatures in the place, but they're managing. Some people outside are watching. An explosion happens, and a player ends up getting thrown. He screams in despair as he's about to fall. There's nothing anyone can do for him. He just meets his end. The image is right in front of the soldiers, and the captain just thinks those men are weak fools, so he tells the next group to go in. He says he doesn't have time, so they need to finish off the monsters fast. On the news, they report that China has conquered Abel Tower, the one that's impossible to invade, and that just this month they cleared 8 dungeons of the same level. The team seems really powerful, and the Chinese government gives players full support, making it the #1 country at clearing invadable dungeons. They report that China plans to do the same with the other remaining dungeons by the end of the year. At China's Superhuman Player Management Department, Director Zhang Lifeng holds a vial in his hand. He asks if this is the potion that can save even a dying man. The man confirms, saying they tested it on a patient with late-stage cancer and found he fully recovered. Zhang thinks it's incredible even though it looks like a soda. He asks how the negotiations are going and is told the US offered to buy 320 potions for 3 billion each. To Zhang, that's a good price. The man says they have players who suffered serious injuries in battle, and that some of them are executive members of the Nine Dragons Guild. Zhang orders him to give them the potion, but he has one condition, only if they pay him 3.5 billion. 2,500 Chinese players have been eliminated so far. That pisses Butcher off since they only reported what made them look good. Guillotine says, the problem is this still isn't over, and Chulwu says he hates politics, claiming the only victims in history are the players. Songmin says he heard they're turning away low-level people or anyone without items. Ayane says half of all Eternal World users are Chinese. She says the country has more than enough players and thinks the Bureau believes their lives are disposable. Song Hyuk stays quiet while he listens to his teammates. It doesn't take long for the meeting to end. Away from everyone, he calls for Lilith. He asks if she remembers the woman who was at the castle before, but the girl remembers that a lot of them came through there. Song Hyuk says she's the one with black hair and black eyes. Another fight is happening. Luo is just watching while her men are in battle. She's wearing her armor. There's a message to meet in 2 days at Valley of Tears at 7 a.m. Luo looks at it, curious. While she's in her room, she keeps staring at the message, then says she never should have agreed to that offer. Something strange happens to her. All of a sudden, Luo feels really sleepy, until she fully wakes up. She wonders if she fell asleep. The woman thinks it's because she hasn't been resting enough lately. She quickly realizes something's wrong. When she turns around, she's face to face with the masked monarch. Luo asks how he got in there, but he just says that's not important. He says he hopes what's happening in China isn't what the Nine Dragons Guild wants. The woman doesn't answer right away, but in the end she reveals there's an organization called the Superhuman Department. Sang Hyuk asks if they control players, and she confirms it. Luo continues the story and says that when she returned to the real world, the department was already managing them. The masked one is intrigued by the story. Luo says that when the elite members of the guild and she came back, they made her an offer to lead the effort to clear China's dungeons. In exchange, they'd get priority on the rewards, so the department sent every player they could into the dungeons. Then they confiscated all the items and equipment they found and took control of Eternal World users in China. The woman says in the end it was greed that got them into this situation. Sang Hyuk looks thoughtful at that. The masked one asks if her guild isn't made up of the country's strongest new guilds, so he wants to know one thing. But before he can ask, Luo says there were 9 leaders, and that everyone's opinions kept splitting every time they tried to make an important decision, and there was nothing she could do. Luo reveals that in the end the department took control of the guild, eliminating anyone who didn't obey them. She says that's how the 9 dragons collapsed before she could do anything. Sang Hyuk realizes it's a complicated situation. He wants to know how many filthy bastards are involved in this, because he wants to punish every last one of them. Meanwhile, outside that room, a car has just pulled up, with the door opened right after. Sang walks out from inside. He's got a nasty grin, same as his men. Without realizing it, he's being watched. Sang Hyuk is up on top of the building. As always, with Lilith by his side, the masked monarch has a serious look. A meeting starts when he asks if anything important was found in the dungeon that can be sold. They answer that there were no SR-level items, but that some good stuff was found, and the man complains that this is because they're raiding low-level places. Sang orders them to contact the 9 dragons and tell them they've got more than enough players to raid high-level dungeons. Suddenly someone gets hit. The bald guy drops to the ground knocked out, putting Zhang on high alert. Looking around, he realizes everyone else is in the same state. He tells his men to get up immediately. The man keeps yelling, asking what they're doing. Suddenly something scares him. The man gets really nervous, and before he can do anything, he gets thrown too. Sang hits the ground unconscious. His face is red from the blow. Sang Hyuk doesn't have even a bit of pity for him, and says it's time for the man to pay for his crimes. Sang Hyuk won't forgive that idiot. The man wakes up, startled by the shouting. Not just him, everyone else is there too. Zhang asks what happened, but none of them know, they just woke up there. The other guy tells the fat one to look around, but he couldn't find a way out. They hear a strange sound. Zhang gets annoyed, realizing where he is. He yells saying he doesn't know who the guy is, but how dare he do this to him. The man warns that his enemy better come to him, kneel and apologize, or he'll find him and tear him to pieces. But nobody comes like he demanded. Still, the bald guy warns that he heard sounds coming from one direction. Zhang wants to know where, since he didn't hear anything. A laser beam passes close to him, leaving a cut on his face, and his man ends up with an even bigger cut, so he completely loses it over the situation. An even louder roar comes from that direction, leaving Zhang and the others terrified. Then savage werewolves appear, making them scream in panic. The monsters use their sharp claws to slash everything around them, and their huge jaws with sharp fangs to bite. Everyone there is being attacked. The werewolves aren't showing any mercy to their victims. Zhang watches the scene, horrified. He's in total shock. The man tries to run away, but there's already a monster behind him. Zhang knows this is the end for him. In a few seconds, he's torn apart by sharp claws. A massacre happens in that dungeon, but outside it, everything is calm, and someone just hears the sounds of horror. Sang Hyuk is lit up under the full moon. His look is indifferent to what's happening. He hopes those men feel at least a little of the despair and fear that the players felt when they were wiped out because of them. And with that, Sang Hyuk says goodbye to those bastards. An overflow was detected in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China. Soon an alert is sent out for everyone to evacuate to the nearest shelter. The monsters are on the loose. There are a bunch of different types. Someone yells for them to stop. She asks if they're enjoying the fresh air. Luo says she hoped they enjoyed it, because it's the end for them. Her words end up irritating the monsters, so they charge at her. Before they can get close, they're hit. Luo covers her eyes, shielding herself from the light. The smoke starts to clear. That attack was done by the Vice Guild Master of the 9 Dragons. Ryu just nods at her in greeting. Luo does the same back. The Vice shouts for everyone to get ready, because it's time to hunt monsters. Ryu attacks the big guy's eye directly. Luo watches her men fighting bravely against the monsters. She's satisfied with the team's courage, but she won't just stand there watching. She joins the fight too. Bravely, she raises her sword against them. It's been 10 days since the director and the executives of the superhuman department disappeared. China believed it was the work of a player who was fed up with how the government was treating him. So the Chinese government's policies toward Eternal World users were completely overhauled. They moved fast because there was widespread fear among top officials that they could be the next target. As a result, they chose a new director for the superhuman department, and it was none other than China's representative player, who had global influence. So they chose Liu Shiqian, the master of the 9 Dragons Guild. In Seoul, South Korea, the news about Liu Shiqian has already spread. For Sang-hyuk, that's not a bad thing. However, his younger brother hears him saying that and wants to know what it is. Sang-min realizes there's something different about the monarch. They go to the player's department store, and Sang-min asks if this is really Hongdae. There are lots of weapons on display there, along with a bunch of shiny jewelry. Sang-min is impressed by all that gear. He wants to know what his brother's doing there, but Sang-hyuk says he just wanted to check the place out. The monarch says he's always been curious about these hybrids that combine technology with items from the eternal world. Their entrance into the store is announced by the bell ringing. Sang-hyuk asks if the man minds them taking a look around, and the shopkeeper tells them to go ahead. Something quickly catches their attention. The monarch notices they mix hair loss solution with a potion, and Sang-min says this one's really popular online because it has an effect 10 times stronger. Even so, Sang-hyuk thinks 100 million won for a bottle is way too expensive, and the younger one says they still sell like crazy anyway. The monarch asks what the best weapon in the place is, and the man immediately goes to look. The shopkeeper introduces a blade made by A Electronics in collaboration with the Bureau of Player Management. He says it's handy against monsters because it's really light, and with the added tech, it's the upgraded version of the one that's inside the game. Interested, Sang-hyuk asks the price, and the seller says they're running a special discount event, so it costs 3 billion won. He asks what the guy thinks, since he won't have anything to fear if he goes into a dungeon with it. But the sword just snaps in the monarch's hands. Annoyed, the man asks what he did, and Sang-hyuk apologizes and says the man said it was better than the one in the game. Anyway, Sang-hyuk tells him to put the charge on his card. He even refuses to pay in installments. Sang-hyuk gets even more confused. Back at the Masked One's castle, dark magic is the best for maximizing mana amplification. Andre says it's dangerous, and that's why everything they do is based on white magic. And he also warns that you can't mix the two. But Ayane says it's not totally black and white. She says that in theory, her tattoo spells are close to dark magic. Cholwoo says that's different. He knows she uses monster fluid for the tattoo, and explains that it just maximizes the effects, and that it's actually mana that gives strength. Michael then concludes he needs ingredients that don't clash with each other, something that creates harmony. Then an idea pops into his head. He asks everyone to come over to him. Sang-hyuk is in his office, his silence getting interrupted all of a sudden. The door behind him was opened unexpectedly. The monarch says they should have knocked first, but the blacksmith says that's not important right now. Cholwoo shows him a potion. Sang-hyuk wants to know what it is, and they all have a confident look, revealing that it's a potion that can restore life. This is the resurrection potion. Sang-hyuk gets curious about it. Andre quickly warns that that isn't entirely true, because they need more tests, but so far a Morinbudo rat's health was restored with just 2 drops. Thoughtful, Sang-hyuk says it works. He asks if they can make a bunch, and the blacksmith says the problem is the ingredients are extremely rare. After all, they need dragon fluid, unicorn horn, phoenix tears in large amounts. Cedric, Sang-hyuk tells them to just say what they need, because he'll try his best to get it. Ayane also asks him to take a look at the new tattoo, and so they shared their skills making swords that could take down huge monsters, or tattoos that boosted specific stats, working together to make new items every day. That's because these people were the best in their fields in Eternal World, each one capable of impressive things. A lot of players will end up using their items in the future. And there's one thing Sang-hyuk is sure about, they'll grow stronger than ever. While they work to get there, another day begins. The Masked Ones fight in Romania. They also faced giant lizards in Kazakhstan, as well as horrifying creatures in Morocco. At the meeting, they want to know about the players who were dispatched. The report is that right now the Masked Ones are in 3 countries in Central Asia, and 2 countries in Africa. Either way, the attacks are progressing well. Sang-hyuk asks if anything was obtained, and Butcher says that aside from the special items, they're selling everything to the local government and the main guilds. He wants to know how things are going at the department store, and finds out it was a bit chaotic at first, but right now everything's running fine. Sang-hyuk says they're still in the early stages of opening, so he asks them to pay close attention to inventory. Chul Wu, on the other hand, wants to know if they can build a city district in front of the castle. He's honest, saying the place is inconvenient in a lot of ways, and Guillotine adds that they can only use electronics outside the castle. Monarch thinks the same, and says it's a good idea. Sang-hyuk asks him to start looking for a good contractor, making sure they're really great at what they do, even if they need a lot of money. Now it's Iceflower's turn to speak, and she says that before the meeting they got a call from the Russian Emperor's Guild. Monarch asks what they wanted. Then she says that apparently the Castle of Chaos has materialized, which leaves Monarch impressed. Then, shifting focus to Siberia, a troop marches toward the forest. The players are well equipped, but something catches their attention, because they've finally reached the castle wall. The mustache guy says it'll be way easier than he expected, thinking they'll wrap this up quickly, but they're told not to let their guard down, since nobody has managed to invade the castle yet, and they think they'll be the first, so they shouldn't get so cocky. The player looks up at the sky because something caught his eye, getting a bit confused as he figures out what it is. The sky is filled with gargoyles. Then the order is given to grab their weapons. A battle starts at the castle, with the sounds of the fight being heard through the dark forest. On the ground, the monsters are lying there, being covered by a thick fog. The Castle of Chaos is a hunting ground with the highest difficulty level. It first appeared in the 5th year of the game Eternal World, and couldn't be conquered until year 20. Not even the masked monarch managed to get through. More accurately, he chose not to. Because of the castle's nature, it couldn't be invaded until its 15th year, and after that it just wasn't worth it anymore. But the other guilds tried their best to conquer the Castle of Chaos, because conquering the place makes it possible to grant your heart's desire. That's why everyone marches to the castle. Nobody knew where the rumor started, but it was spreading fast among the players. There are several bottles of drinks, all of them scattered around the room. Little by little, Ian wakes up. His head hurts like hell. He wonders how much he must have drunk last night. He's confused about the woman sleeping next to him. Someone asks if he can get dressed yet. The masked monarch is standing right in front of him, and tells him not to ruin his eyes. Ian is completely shocked to see the masked guy there. He suggests the guy must be in Russia because of the Castle of Chaos. Sang-hyuk says there wouldn't be any other reason for him to be there. After all, he's a very busy person. Ian offers a cup of coffee, but the masked guy turns it down because he just wants the terms. The blonde guy smiles and says he's sure the guy was already expecting this, so he just wants all his weapons back. But Sang-hyuk says he can't do that. Ian still tries to persuade him, saying he's sure the Castle of Chaos is worth it. Monarch says he's not sure how he'd know until he checks the reward, which makes the blonde guy curious. Ian wants to know what he's going to do, and the masked guy says he'll conquer the castle and make the deal after he checks how valuable the reward is, which the blonde guy doesn't trust. Sang-hyuk says he didn't know he had so little trust with him, but anyway, he'll make a promise. The masked guy says that if he clears the Castle of Chaos, he'll share how he did it only with the Emperor's Guild. Ian drinks his coffee while thinking about the offer. He's at Beloyarsk Airport. His plane has just landed, and he gets out as soon as the door opens. Sang-hyuk is wearing a coat, looking a bit more casual. Monarch is greeted by someone who thanks him for coming. The guild's vice master says they'll be his guide. He asks the masked guy to follow him. Sang-hyuk asks if his name is Anton, which surprises the guy that he knows. Sang-hyuk summons the dimensional pocket and sticks his hand into the glowing hole, pulling out an item. For some reason he apologizes for the delay, leaving Anton even more confused. But then he notices the item in the masked guy's hand. It happened in Eternal World at the Demon King's castle. Anton was still standing, though badly hurt. His fight was against Murmur, the demon lord ranked 51. Behind him there's a woman lying fallen. Panting, he calls out for Alina. Either way, the monster lets out a really loud roar. Anton is worried about his partner's situation. An attack happens, causing an explosion. Little by little, the smoke starts to clear. Nothing happened to the couple. Anton is pretty tired and hurt. Murmur, on the other hand, is down on the ground, and standing in front of him is the masked monarch. Sang-hyuk finally looks at him. The masked one asks if they're okay, but first he offers a potion. Anton looks at his partner. Alina doesn't wake up because she's no longer alive. Anton answers that he's fine. He says that even if he manages to get out of there, he'll just be delaying the end. But he wants a favor. Anton pulls something out of his pocket. It's a small golden box. He says he prepared it to propose to the woman he loves. Anton asks if the masked one can burn the item along with Alina. The masked monarch looks way too young, so Anton begs him to do it. Those are his last words. Sang-hyuk realizes something happened. The box fell, and with the impact it opened, revealing what was inside. Back in the present, the vice master holds the ring. The man is speechless for a moment. All he can say is that the monarch held onto it all this time. Sang-hyuk says he should apologize for that. He says he tried to burn the ring with his beloved but couldn't because monsters showed up at that moment. Even though he had no choice, he apologizes. Anton says it's okay, and that he brought it back, so he's the one thanking him for it. Sang-hyuk seems satisfied with that. He asks if they're living a better life, and Anton reveals that besides getting married, they're expecting a child. The monarch is surprised and says he should give a late wedding gift, but the vice master says it's fine. Even so, Sang-hyuk hands something over for their child. The old man, though, doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Meanwhile, Ian is enjoying his day alongside beautiful girls. He's on a call with someone. The man gives a small smile. Another night in the forest, which is still packed with fog. They walk toward the castle. Anton and Sang-hyuk keep leading the group. The vice says he doesn't know the exact location, but he's sure it won't take long to find it. So the masked one says he'll see him later. Anton gives a small smile as he watches the masked one walk away. He hopes the guy stays safe. Sang-hyuk continues down the path alone. He's really careful where he steps. Still, he can't see anything in front of him, and wonders what he needs at a moment like this. With the mask, he activates the passive enchantment skill, eyes that see through lies. That way he can see. Sang-hyuk then goes back to following the path. Suddenly, something catches his attention, because he finally runs into the Castle of Chaos. But he notices something else. There are gargoyles still in stone form. The guy wonders if they'll move when he opens the castle doors. Something is coming toward the monster, making parts of it explode, and it's just Sang-hyuk landing a shot with his bow. He'd like a good fight, but he doesn't have much time, so he just says goodbye to the monsters. Calmly, he walks on after taking out the gargoyles. Sang-hyuk stops in front of the gate. Besides being huge, it looks like it's made of really reinforced material. He looks at it more seriously, wondering if he really should. In response, he opens the door. Sang-hyuk looks around. There are a lot of statues in the garden. He thinks it's just an ordinary place. Once again, he wonders if he should just go into the castle. He finds another door. The problem is, it looks like it's locked, so there's only one thing left to do. Sang-hyuk will have to destroy it. The energy ball hits the door, but even so, it stays shut. Sang-hyuk used his strongest attack, but it didn't work to open it. He takes off his mask, to think the situation through better. Sang-hyuk turns to get a better look, noticing a red stone in one of the statues. Apparently there's a riddle he needs to solve. The masked monarch walks up to the statue. This is Andromalius, the strongest demon lord, number 72. Once again, he looks around, finding number 71, Dantalion, and Sari is there too. Marbus holding his weapon. It doesn't stop there. There's Gamigan too, and there's one more. The one with the highest rank, King Bale. Sang-hyuk thinks about what he needs to do. Once again, he looks around. There are statues of the 72 demon lords there. He doesn't really know what to do exactly, but he gets that there's a riddle to solve to get in. To him, the Castle of Chaos is starting to get interesting. Sang-hyuk touches one of the stones, but apparently nothing seems to work. To make things worse, there are no other clues. He wonders if he should just smash them to pieces, but he thinks that should be a last resort. Something catches his attention. Sang-hyuk wants to know what they're hiding. Looks like the night's gonna be long. Meanwhile, far from the castle, the guys take shelter in the inn room. Anton has a calm expression. He admires the ring on his hand. Suddenly the door opens. Ian walks in with a big smile saying the guys did a good job. Anton asks what he's doing there, and the blonde guy says he can't just sit around doing nothing while they're working so hard. The guildmaster asks if everything's okay, and the vice says so far yes. Something catches Ian's eye. He says he's never seen the ring before. Anton explains that the masked monarch gave it to him, along with the elixirs and Uriel's divinity. Ian is impressed by the rare items. He smiles and tells Anton he did a good job. With a scary look, the blonde guy says he expects nothing less from a guild vice master. Back at the Castle of Chaos, Sang-hyuk is sitting in front of the door, a short break to eat. No matter how he looks at it, the statues aren't placed in any specific order. The monarch tried touching them in rank order, but nothing happened, and he thinks there's nothing else to look for either, leaving only the one option, destroy them. He wants to find out what they're hiding, because he's starting to get irritated. Suddenly something catches his attention. Sang-hyuk is finally noticing something. He's never seen this demon before. The masked monarch is finally figuring out the riddle. He starts counting the statues. Sang-hyuk keeps going, reaching number 35. Then comes number 67 and 68. He keeps counting the statues, until he finally gets to Bale in position 73. The guy thought there were only 72 demon lords there, but there's one extra statue. Realizing that means he has to find the odd one out, Sang-hyuk looks around, noticing something. Suddenly one of the statues is gone. The stone creature is behind him, ready to attack, but obviously the masked monarch notices. The creature strikes, destroying the whole floor around them. The monster gets pissed that it missed. Sang-hyuk really didn't like being attacked from behind. The monster lets out a roar, realizing it got caught off guard. It turns to try to attack, but it's Sang-hyuk who makes the first move, smashing the stone monster into pieces. For him that was easy, but then he notices something else. The other statues are moving too, and the embedded stone lights up, in a circle formation. Together they fire a beam. Something forms above the masked guy's head. Sang-hyuk looks up. There's a red orb that formed. Then it fires a beam that goes toward the door, which lights up red, and then opens for him. Finally, Sang-hyuk can go in, but a red flash comes from inside. That flash is actually a paw that grabs the masked monarch. Sang-hyuk did not see that coming. A roar is heard from inside. Sang-hyuk is being dragged in, and there's nothing he can do right now, so he accepts his fate. Either way, he's inside, and the doors close behind him. The open window lets the sunlight in. It hits Sang-hyuk, who's lying down, making the guy wake up. Lilith is also by his side. Soon he notices the girl's presence. The princess says he'll catch a cold sleeping in a freezing place like this. What she says leaves Sang-hyuk confused. Sang-hyuk finally wakes up. It was all just a dream. The masked monarch wonders where he is, looking around for a clue. A symbol catches his attention, making him wonder if he's inside the Demon King's castle. Lilith shows up behind him, happily asking about the place. Startled, Sang-hyuk asks what she's doing there, and she says it's because she missed him. He scolds her, saying she can't follow him. Without her noticing, there's a giant creature behind her. Sang-hyuk yells for her to be careful. So Lilith manages to dodge the attack. The masked guy quickly draws his sword. His eyes widen when he notices something. A snake crawls under the ground. The monarch barely avoids getting bitten and finishes the thing off with a single slash. But more start showing up, and beating them becomes a challenge for the player. With one smooth move, he finishes his strike, slicing them up like they're just giant spaghetti. That ends up pissing off the snake-headed monster. But Sang-hyuk doesn't forget about him, and quickly cuts him down. The monster feels that hit. The masked monarch practically went right through him. In the end, the monster falls to the ground. After taking off his mask, Sang-hyuk walks over to him. This seems to be Andromalius. He wonders what the rank 72 Demon Lord is doing there. Lilith wants to know what place this is because she thinks it's super fun. The masked one can't stop thinking about how weird everything is because on top of that, Andromalius seemed way too weak for a Demon Lord. Then suddenly something starts to make sense. He believes the place is a replica of the Demon King's castle. Lilith says there's something where the monster used to be. That pile of flesh disappears, giving way to the chaos chest. Sang-hyuk is confused about why that's there and wonders if it's because this place is the castle of chaos. Lilith wants to know what the chaos chest is, so Sang-hyuk explains that it gives a random item. Someone can get anything from something normal to rare or even mythic level, like a lottery. She doesn't really get it, but asks if it's a good thing, and the masked one confirms it and says they're hard to find. For now, the monarch is going to keep it in his dimensional pocket. The two of them are totally distracted, when suddenly they hear a loud sound. Something caused a huge smoke bomb, stopping the pair from seeing. Sang-hyuk wants to figure out what it was that just happened. Even with the smoke, you can make out a silhouette. A scarier monster appears. This is Dantalion, the rank 71 Demon Lord. Sang-hyuk keeps a neutral expression. The monster immediately rushes him, but the monarch quickly dodges, pulling out his sword right away. This one seems stronger than the other. The Demon Lord lets out a scream, but something is wrong with Dantalion. He just collapses to the ground, leaving even Sang-hyuk confused. He steps closer to try to understand. Then Lilith reveals it was her, and excitedly asks if she did a good job. Just like the First Lord, this one disappears, but this time it didn't leave a chest. Smiling, the player remembers he warned her it's something rare, and says that either way it doesn't matter. Because for the monarch it means something that he faced the rank 71 and 72 lords. As soon as he finishes speaking, someone appears behind them, making both of them turn around, ending up face to face with Siri, Demon Lord number 70. They also end up fighting Murmur, rank 54, even the Demon Kian, 38, then Sakat, who's at 22. Sang-hyuk keeps attacking without hesitating, beating them with all his effort. Another one disappears without leaving any chest. Still, he gained Warner Prestige, SR grade, with defense 120 to 200, wisdom up by 15, and agility by 10. He complains about how rare the chaos chest is. Lilith says they still have more items. Covered in jewels, the girl asks if she looks pretty, but unfortunately the masked one doesn't answer. He's only interested in who's next. They keep going through the castle. Like always, the princess flying by his side. Then the two of them come to a stop. There's someone at the top of the stairs, sitting on his throne like a true lord. It's Baal. They're waiting for him. That stirs something in Sang-hyuk, a memory of fighting him in Eternal World, only to find out it was all just an illusion, and that things weren't over. Sang-hyuk looks serious. Lilith shrinks behind him. The girl even trembles, looking pretty scared of him. The masked monarch understands that apparently she's afraid of Baal, but he doesn't blame her, because even if he's a fake version, he's still the master of all demons. Baal's stare is terrifying. Finally he speaks, asking if the human knows this place isn't for him. Sang-hyuk's attitude impresses him, because the guy says all he knows is that he came to the right place. The Demon Lord feels like he's being challenged, so he finally stands up from his throne. He says the player's arrogance will lead him to the end of his life. Baal declares he'll grant him eternal rest. Grabbing his weapon, Sang-hyuk says he talks way too loud for a fake demon. Without waiting, he's already going in to attack, charging at the demon, who's even surprised. The monarch says he's the one who'll give him eternal rest. He also wants the chaos chest. Sang-hyuk sticks his hand into his dimensional pocket, pulling out the Typhoon Axe, attacking the Demon Lord right away. But the fake Baal managed to defend himself, and then he fires laser beams from his eyes. His attack shakes everything around, but Sang-hyuk is fine because he dodged. Baal surprises him with how fast he is, hitting him when he wasn't expecting it. Sang-hyuk gets thrown far away, using the strength in his feet to stop. Finally, he's got an enemy on his level. From his dimensional pocket, he pulls out Zephyrim's sacred bow, firing several energy arrows, so the Demon Lord just waits. The arrows hit several spots, but Baal dodges, ready to face the masked one head-on. Their weapons clash. Bale has a terrifying look, and Sang-hyuk isn't going to be intimidated. Bale fires a shot at him, and Sang-hyuk quickly manages to block it. Energy spreads through the whole area. Lilith watches it all, really impressed. The two keep fighting. Like most demon lords, Bale doesn't have a pattern to his attacks. If Sang-hyuk knew that in each phase, he'd be able to find the right counterattack. But since that's not possible, the only way to respond fast to every situation is to gain experience and learn his abilities. However, in some cases, that strategy isn't necessary. Meanwhile, Bale proves why he's the master of demons. His strike is stopped when he realizes there's no body there. Sang-hyuk surprises him from behind and says that this is when I can overwhelm my opponent with brute force. Bale turns to attack him, but the monarch is faster at activating the dimensional step skill. The demon lord ends up hitting nothing. Bale looks really confused and looks around for his opponent. Once again, Sang-hyuk catches him off guard, making sure not to miss the hit. This situation leaves the demon lord, who keeps hitting nothing but air. Sang-hyuk asks how he still hasn't noticed, taunting him, saying it's not like him. Then another blow lands, making Bale grit his teeth. In the meantime, the lord notices something. His focus goes to Lilith. The demon gives a nasty smile, quickly changing his attack route. Sang-hyuk wants to know if he's running away, but then he realizes the Demon King's intention. The masked monarch tells the princess to run, because Bale is heading straight for her fast, with a big evil grin. The girl's eyes go wide, frozen in place. It's too late for her to run. Sang-hyuk runs to her, but apparently he wasn't fast enough. Because Lilith was hurt by Bale, he takes the girl in his arms. Sang-hyuk begs her to wake up, but the girl doesn't answer his calls. He looks for Bale, who's nowhere to be seen. Sang-hyuk yells, calling him a monster, and asks if he thinks he's going to get away like this. Immediately, he summons his dimensional pocket. He takes out the resurrection potion. Sang-hyuk offers it to Lilith, saying she might feel better if she drinks it. Sang-hyuk soon senses a presence. The demon lord leaps in to attack. Sang-hyuk puts himself up like a shield, protecting Lilith from getting hurt even more. Unfortunately, the potion ends up falling to the ground. It's a shame, because the liquid spreads across the floor. Something else appears behind him. They're surrounded by monsters. Sang-hyuk has a serious look. There are a lot of them surrounding him, all with creepy smiles. That makes Sang-hyuk tense up. Then the demon lord calls out to the human, and says the outcome of the fight has already been decided. Bella says that in the end, his death was caused by his own arrogance. Sang-hyuk gets pissed at the words of this bastard, declaring that he'll bring an end to him. His only target is Bale, but the other demons won't let him reach the master. The situation makes the masked monarch even more irritated, and Bale is satisfied, showing who's really powerful. Then the monsters turn on the player. Sang-hyuk will have to deal with them first. The creature tries to strike from behind, but ends up losing to the monarch, who cuts them all down without an ounce of mercy. As a consequence, they'll have to face the masked monarch's fury. Sang-hyuk takes all of them out, clearing his path. There are still more monsters to fight. The monarch uses his blade, cutting down the first one. He looks around for the next, and strikes another monster with his sword. Sang-hyuk spins his sword, hitting the group surrounding him. He pushes through those monsters, leaving the battlefield clean. In the end, Sang-hyuk lets out a tired sigh, but apparently things aren't over. Behind him another group of monsters gathers. That's seriously pissing him off. With a smile, Bale asks if he didn't warn him the outcome was already decided, so he declares the human's end. With his order, the monsters attack. Sang-hyuk pulls out his sword. The situation makes him tense, but then, all of a sudden, small orbs of light are floating around him, leaving the masked monarch confused. Those orbs even catch the monster's attention. They all stare at those lights, totally confused. But even though they're beautiful, they have a deadly effect on them. The demon starts screaming. Something is happening to them, like they're being sucked into the light. Something zips past them, and then heads straight for Sang-hyuk. The masked monarch doesn't even move. Whatever it is, it's way too fast. That light passes right by him, and ends up hitting the ground. Sang-hyuk turns to look, his face full of surprise. The smoke slowly starts to clear, revealing who's there. A voice says it wasn't bad, like she'd found her true self, then asks how she looks. Now with an adult appearance, Lilith asks if she's pretty. The monster's life energy was drained. Bale looks at his creatures. He wants to understand what that means. Either way, the two of them are back. Lilith has a mischievous smile, while Bale seems to realize he's really at a disadvantage. He yells that he'll make them pay for this. Sang-hyuk wants to know what the villain is doing this time. What he does next makes the masked one angry. Bale simply vanished from the battlefield. Sang-hyuk looks for him. Meanwhile, the demon lord is somewhere else. He's pissed. He almost got the masked one, and there was no way he could have guessed the Night Witch would wake up at that exact moment. Bale knows he has no choice but to wait for another chance to attack her. Lilith surprises him by asking if the villain is talking about her. The girl manages to scare the demon lord. She asks if the cat's got his tongue, making it clear she won't let him run. Bale looks back, searching for the other one. The lord asks if she really came to face him alone. He says that even though he was forced to change his plans, he's still the Demon King. After all, a Night Witch like her can't defeat him. Even though he landed the hit, he's the one who looks shocked. Now, as a beautiful woman, Lilith appears behind him, calling him a liar. She says he's not the Demon King, In desperation, Belle begs her to wait. He pleads for them to talk about it. But Lilith's answer is a blast of energy, sending the demon lord flying. Belle hits the ground completely. Knocked out, his face starts to change. In the end, everything about him is fake. Sang-hyuk shows up and says he's probably the owner of the castle, but since he never cleaned the place before, he doesn't recognize him. The monarch is curious about their reward, and then the monster's body disappears, and it's another chaos chest. Sang-hyuk doesn't look satisfied and says the dungeon doesn't live up to its promises. Anyway, Lilith goes to check what's inside. She's hoping to get a pretty bracelet, but Sang-hyuk cuts her off and says it's time to decide. She has no idea what he's talking about, so he reminds her about the contract terms. After all, he gave her the choice to continue or cancel the contract once she became an adult. Sang-hyuk seems worried about it, but he tells her to think carefully, because once she decides, there's no taking it back. He says he'll give her some time. Before he leaves, Lilith calls out to him. The Night Witch seems shy. She says that before she woke up, she only thought the guy was someone really powerful, and after waking up, she's sure he's someone she could never defeat. Sang-hyuk thinks about what to say. He tells her not to worry because he won't hurt her, and the queen asks if she should thank him for that. Anyway, she's made her decision. Lilith asks if leaving him will make her a target for the other players, but she also says that if she stays by his side fighting them one after another, she'll disappear from this world someday. That's not what she wants. She wants to live in this world for a long time, so she doesn't really have any doubts, and she asks if the safest place is near her master. Her words seem to hit him. Sang-hyuk smiles and says she's right. Lilith is happy with that, but she has one condition. She wants to know if she can finally call him a papa. That catches him off guard, but to Lilith's happiness he agrees. Meanwhile, in the snowy desert, the team is camped out in a safe spot. Ian the guildmaster is there. The blonde guy notices something in the distance. A silhouette appears in the middle of the snowstorm. Sang-hyuk is finally back, and they seem happy about it. Ian says he's running a little late. Sang-hyuk confirms that he really is. Then the absolute guildmaster wants to know how it went over there. Without going into details, he says it went fine, and the blonde guy wants to know more. Sang-hyuk says he cleared the castle successfully, and says they won't be able to do it. It's already night in Seoul. Sang-min is already in bed. The guy is sleeping pretty peacefully, until he's taken somewhere. He wonders if he's dreaming. Sang-min finds it fascinating and thinks it's dimensional travel. A voice asks the Sunset Swordsman to wake up. The guy isn't in his room anymore. Sang-min wants to understand what's happening and where he is. Adult Lilith appears in front of him. Sunset Swordsman asks who she is. Lilith asks if he doesn't recognize her. He finally realizes, and behind him Butcher says he's never seen him without the mask before. The big guy compliments his looks. He says he gets that the kid is confused, and that they got there through dreams too. But Butcher will talk about that later. Right now he asks if the kid knows what that is, but Sunset isn't sure even though it feels familiar. Then the big guy says it's the Chest of Chaos. Sang-min quickly realizes he must be in the place his brother went to raid. Sang-hyuk ordered the masked mercenaries to grind experience points there, and figured it would be good hunting grounds. But Butcher can tell because that's where the Chest of Chaos was left. Still, Sunset asks if he thinks the Emperor Guild is just gonna sit back and watch. Butcher tells him not to worry about them because the masked guy said he'd handle it. That just makes the boy even more confused. Meanwhile, at the other guild's camp, Ian wants to understand what he means by not being able to clear it. Sang-hyuk says he can tell him how to clear the place, but it'll be useless for them. The blonde guy wants to understand what he means by that. Ian tells him not to try to weasel out of the promise, and the masked guy says he'll explain why, and that he needs to listen carefully. Sang-hyuk explains that to enter the place you need high mental strength, and says that looking at their stats they haven't reached that level. Ian suggests using items to boost it, and the masked guy asks if they have that. The blonde guy tries to get one off him, but Monarch warns there aren't many items out there that can do that, since they're rare, then asks why he should give his to him. He says that even if the man gets in, that's just the beginning, and asks if he really thinks he'll get through everything. Ian tries to argue with Sang-hyuk. At that moment, the masked guy notices something on the master's finger. That puts Sang-hyuk on alert. He says his work is done, and he wants to rest. Sang-hyuk asks Anton if the guy can take him to the hotel. That's not pleasant at all for Ian. The two of them head out by car. Anton is the one driving, and Sang-hyuk is riding along. The masked guy starts by saying the kid doesn't look well and asks if something's wrong, but the vice master says nothing is bothering him. Sang-hyuk asks if he's sure, like he's reading his thoughts. Getting straight to the point, he asks why Ian was wearing the ring he returned. Anton tries to make an excuse, but the masked guy says not to tell him, he just gave it to the man, and says he's aware of Ian's greed. Sang-hyuk has a message to pass along. He says the ring doesn't belong to him, it belonged to his family. That seems to scramble the vice master's mind, so they keep going to the hotel. Anton stays awake even though it's late. He still looks a bit lost in thought, as he stares at the photo of his wife and son. His expression is dead serious. Having decided to leave the Emperor Guild, that's what he tells the master. Ian tries to say something to him, but Anton cuts him off and asks for the ring that belongs to his wife. That doesn't sit well with the guild master at all. Ian says apparently there's a misunderstanding, because the man is making it sound like he took it. He says this is strictly business, and asks if he doesn't know that as guildmaster he needs to get stronger to strengthen the guild. But that doesn't seem to convince Anton. The guy asks if that means he'll keep taking members' items. That doesn't go over well with Ian. The Emperor Group's master stands up, then grabs Anton by the shirt. Ian asks if he really wants to meet his end tonight, but Anton again asks for the ring, saying it belongs to his wife, annoying the master even more. So in response, Ian hits the guy, sending him flying away. So then he decides he'll take him out first. Ian grabs a blade and says not to blame him for it, because he's doing it for the guild. With a smile, the man asks if he really didn't see this coming. Then Anton agrees with that, because he didn't think the guy would be such a bastard. That pisses Ian off so much that he lunges at him. But before he can do anything, the door is thrown open right away. Sang Hyukok tells him to calm down, and just like Anton, he calls him a bastard. The masked man showing up is a surprise. Sang Hyukok asks how long the vice is going to stay lying there, and orders him to get up, which the guy does, even under that furious glare. As he gets up, Anton walks past the Emperor Guildmaster. Ian feels pure hatred at that. He tells the masked man there are lines even he shouldn't cross. The blonde says this is their guild's business, so he suggests he stay out of it and leave. But Sang Hyukok surprises him by saying he shouldn't be so sure, because it does involve him, and he says he doesn't remember giving him the ring. Sang Hyukok walks up to the guildmaster, saying his name and his position. Then he asks Ian if he's lost his mind. His words and him being that close scare the blonde. Sang Hyukok declares that from that moment on, the Emperor Guildmaster will be Anton. While Ian asks what he thinks he's doing, Anton tries to say he has no intention of becoming Guildmaster, but the monarch has more to say. He says that if he ever sees Ian again, the Emperor Guild won't exist anymore. Then he says if anyone disagrees, now's the time to speak up. The masked man also says he'd be more than happy to fight the blonde. Meanwhile, at the masked man's castle, the man walks down the hallway. His name is Lee Hyugok-suk, director of the Player Management Bureau. Lilith asks him to wait inside, saying the masked monarch will be here soon. The office's golden double doors are opened, and the man is left alone in the room. Hyugok-suk's eyes widen, because now he knows this is where the masked monarch lives. Sang Hyukok appears behind him, startling him as he says it's been a while since they last saw each other. The director greets the masked man politely, and meanwhile Lilith says she'll give them privacy, adding that if he needs her, just call. Alone, Sang Hyukok asks the man to sit. Getting straight to the point, the monarch asks what he came here for, and the director reveals he knows he'll use the land in front of the castle. The masked man says if this is about the price, he thought that was already settled. Hyukok-suk says that in exchange for the land that belongs to Seoul, the government wants him to fight in a few countries they've picked, as well as invest in the city district he'll build. The masked monarch asks whose orders those are, which confuses the director. To be clearer, the masked man asks who sent him. Hyukok looks a little hesitant, but in the end, he reveals he was sent by the Blue House. Sang Hyukok asks what this is really about. He asks how many years are left in the president's term, finding out it's a little over a year. That makes the management director realize something. He says it looks like the president is trying to use the masked man's name to rack up one more big achievement before leaving office. Hyukok-suk says his heart is with the players. Sang Hyukok calls the director's name. Then he asks if he used to be a player too. The man confirms it and says that besides being low level, his skills were terrible. Sang Hyukok asks if it isn't frustrating working for the government, especially with people who don't know anything about Eternal World. Thinking about it, in the end the director agrees. The masked man wants to know what the Bureau's purpose is, if it's to control them and act arrogant toward the players. Hyukok-suk is embarrassed by the situation. He says he doesn't want to do it, but it's beyond his power. Sang Hyukok takes the moment and asks if it were within his reach, would he be willing to change things. More directly, he asks if the director would do a better job. Hyukok-suk just says he doesn't know how that would even be possible. Then Sang Hyuk says, for others it might not be, but for me the solution is really simple. And then he reveals he's going to privatize the player management department, leaving Hyuk-suk completely shocked. But for that, the masked man wants him to promise one thing, that he won't act like his superiors. Then Sang Hyuk is clear when he asks if he can do that. With his head down and in a low voice, the man says yes. More confident, he says he'll do it if the masked one gives him a chance. Focused on the Blue House, a black car stops at the entrance, with the door open for someone to get out. It's Sang Hyuk dressed in his suit. The young man's look is serious and confident. With his entourage, he goes inside. The masked monarch is warmly welcomed, and his visit is well appreciated, because someone is happy they're finally meeting. The president of South Korea says it's a pleasure to meet him. They meet in a room. Yang Min-ho says he knows he's a busy man, so he thanks him for accepting his invitation. In a joking tone, he asks if he can call him monarch. Sang Hyuk has nothing personal against the president. He even voted for him during the election. However, the stories he heard when he returned to the real world were more than disappointing. He hid in bunkers while people were being killed by monsters. And instead of looking for a way to deal with this national emergency, he's trying to reform the constitution to allow a second term. Min-ho says he greatly boosted the department's reputation in Korea, and for that they'll always be grateful. Still, the masked one cuts him off, asking him to get straight to the point. The young man asks him to choose his words more carefully, but the president says it's fine and asks them to let the masked one speak. He also suggests they drop the formalities. Then, the foreign minister introduces himself. Jang Hate asks if he wants to build a city district in front of the castle, and the masked one confirms. He continues and says the government of the Republic of Korea will allow it under a few conditions. Then a sound ends up catching his attention. He looks at Sang-hyuk, who has a terrifying expression. Monarch says there's a misunderstanding, because he's not looking for permission to build, and that he's just letting them know he's going to do it. That ends up irritating the mustached guy. He introduces himself as the leader of the Korean National Party. Hong Pyo complains about the masked one's manners, claiming that since he's the youngest there, he should refer to the others as sir. But Sang-hyuk ignores him completely. He says not everyone is allowed to say whatever they want in this meeting, and says next time he should ask permission to speak. The party leader gets angry at such audacity, but the president himself tells him to stop. Honk even tries to argue back, but Minho tells him to shut up. The man ends up accepting his superior's order. Minho apologizes for what happened, and asks him to continue. Sang-hyuk says what he has to say is simple. He says that if the man keeps making absurd demands, the masked mercenaries will leave the Republic of Korea. That makes people start talking. The members and ministers won't accept being treated like they're nothing, not even this idea that he can just pack up and leave. Sang-hyuk's response is to stand up from his chair. He says he has nothing else to say, so he's leaving. Hong yells at him to come back and sit down. Someone reveals that people are watching them. That catches Sang-hyuk's attention. Minho goes on saying that people are watching the government work and fight for their safety and the country's progress. The president begs for help, saying that if it's not for the people in the room, then do it for the people. But Sang-hyuk refuses, saying he has no intention of being part of his PR strategy. He asks if the president has heard the phrase "Hell Korea," saying another one has become popular these days, "Leave Korea." Monarch asks how he feels hearing that, and if he still thinks he's doing a good job. Jung Ho-tae is outraged by the audacity. Sang-hyuk asks if they know that globally only 30% of Eternal World has materialized, which means even deadlier, more terrifying monsters will keep showing up. Knowing that revelation leaves the president terrified. Sang-hyuk says this is the moment when they need to quickly raise the points of low-level players, but the president is raising their taxes and taking under-the-table money for preferential hunting ground assignments. Then he asks if he thinks that's acceptable. His words really hit the president. Minho says he understands what he's trying to say. He says he'll discuss these matters with his ministers. Then Sang-hyuk demands that he dissolve the player management department. Minho wants to understand what he's saying. Monarch says he asked for his help thinking about the people, and that's what he's doing, but only for the people of Korea. Meanwhile in Los Angeles, the woman is alone in her office, reading the headline about the masked mercenaries having taken a break. She reads that all the members disappeared after clearing the Castle of Chaos. That leaves her pretty deep in thought, and wondering if they found the Chest of Chaos. Mount Jiri is dark and covered in fog. Someone makes their way through that creepy forest. The man lets out a breath through his mouth, worn out from the effort. He strains to try to see something. The fog is especially thick that day, so he thinks maybe he should have just stayed home. After all, there's no way to find herbs if he can't see anything. All of a sudden, everything feels weird for the man, because the fog just vanished. Something then catches his attention. He can't believe what his eyes are seeing. The man can't figure out what this thing in front of him is. On the news they report there was a closed-door meeting at the Blue House that morning with the masked monarch. That President Yang Min-ho was there, and Sang-hyuk says Korea only does the most pointless stuff. His phone starts ringing with a call from Butcher. The monarch picks up and asks how things are going at the Castle of Chaos, and the big guy says they beat Sagan rank 61. Sang-hyuk asks if he thinks they can pull it off. Butcher says if everyone works together to raid the castle, he thinks they can clear it. The monarch says to be careful anyway, because it gets harder the more high-level demon lords you face, and he also says he's getting another call. As soon as he sees the name on the screen, he's surprised. It's not a call he gets every day, so he's curious what Su-chan wants. Meanwhile, at the masked monarch's castle, Sang-hyuk asks what the group is doing outside the lab. Chol-woo says he heard he met with the president. The monarch confirms it, and the blacksmith says he's always doing everything alone. He says he heard he accepted the government's conditions in exchange for the player management department, and the masked one says it's nothing to worry about. Sang-hyuk explains they just have to fight in a country chosen by the rulers each quarter. He drops it and asks what they want, because he's sure there's something else they want to talk about. So Chan thinks they need to step away for a while, which catches the monarch off guard. The hooded guy turns around expecting his teammates to say something. In the end, he says he can't do anything with the group because of their low level, and the items can't be used unless they reach a certain level. In this case, Andre is level 41, Michael 58, Ana 63, and Dina 35. Sang-hyuk gets what he's saying, so Chan says they need more XP, so he asks for a succubus or an incubus. The monarch wants to know what they need them for. The hooded guy says the tattoo artist told him succubus are pros at kiting. Sang-hyuk says she's probably the only person who'd think of kiting with a succubus. Anyway, he wishes them good luck and tells them not to forget their potions. At the player management department, the intern says they got a report about a new dungeon early this morning. Then the guy with glasses asks about the location and is surprised to hear it's on Mount Jiri. As soon as he got the news, he went to confirm it. The man even adjusts his glasses to make sure he's seeing it right. In the photo, he recognizes the Steel Mountain Range. Their conversation catches someone's attention. The man explains to his coworker that he probably doesn't know about the dungeon because it's from year 5, and he explains that basically it's the source of most of the high-level weapons and armor in Eternal World. That freaks his coworker out, and with a grin the man says things are about to get crazy, that the whole country is going to be talking about it. Meanwhile, at the international airport, people come and go with every flight, and Manuel is one of them. Michael does the same, and Richard shows up too, with that unfriendly look on his face. They're getting calls from countries all over the world asking the government to allow access to the Steel Mountain Range, since it could lead to a diplomatic disaster. The man asks what they should do. The chief of staff is nervous about the situation. Manhwa is in his office. The president has his arms crossed about the situation. His expression is worried. With not much else to do, he picks up the phone and asks them to call the masked monarch. Sang-hyuk is alone in the room, reading the paper in his hands. He looks it over carefully. It's an official letter from the president, allowing him to manage the Steel Mountain Range. The Steel Mountain Range has 2 reasons for its fame. First, it's a hunting ground that requires a multiplayer attack. 5 groups of 10 players have to take part together. The second reason is because of the monsters that show up, like the golems called the Black Knight, Red Knight, and White Knight. They're made of metal stronger than steel. Adamantium, radium, mithril, and more. Most of the weapons and armor that exist in Eternal World come from those golems. Sang-hyuk asks if they're ready. A meeting is happening between the guild masters at the castle. Manuel asks if he thinks they came unprepared. Richard tells him not to worry because they can handle themselves. Michael is the only one who stays quiet. Then Sang-hyuk laughs, saying they seem really confident. But he has to remind them that the Steel Mountain Range is different from other dungeons, because besides not being able to clear it, there's a chance of getting wiped out, making it very clear it's different from anything they've experienced. Michael tells him that's enough preaching. Annoyed, he asks what he's trying to say, and if he wants the Steel Mountain Range all to himself. Sang-hyuk has a serious look in the face of the provocation. The masked man says it's funny for him to ask that, saying that the United Kingdom took the Mana Stone mine all for itself, and asking why they can't do the same. Sang-hyuk says he doesn't fully understand the situation. Showing total authority, he says that from this moment on, no UK player will be allowed to enter the Steel Mountain Range. Michael asks what he's talking about. The masked monarch isn't afraid to enforce his authority, so he tells the blonde guy to leave Korea immediately. Finally, Michael seems to understand the situation better. Sang-hyuk isn't just messing around. Now he feels the danger and the chaos it caused, but he still has his pride, so he stands up. Michael leaves the room, slamming the door. Sang-hyuk turns to face the others, leaving them a warning to think carefully before making a decision. The monarch also says they should think about it if they value their lives, and then the meeting continues. Sang-hyuk is in the forest where the new dungeon is located. Because of the thick fog, you can only see his silhouette. He walks calmly through the place, having no trouble seeing. Then he finally finds what he was looking for. It's the dungeon entrance, and he can't go in alone. A voice gets his attention, saying, "They're ready." Sang-hyuk turns and comes face to face with the players. Richard says it's time to go. The monarch gives the man one more warning, not to think about stealing the weapons he lent him, and the knight says he thought he would do that. Sang-hyuk gives another warning not to be greedy, because the plan is to go only as far as the Black Knight zone. So they're finally ready to go. The fog there is thick. With their weapons, the players walk through the area. Most of them look a little scared. The leaders, though, move up front. What they see ahead scares them. Anyway, they finally arrived at the Steel Mountain Range. There's something right up ahead. Sang-hyuk tells everyone to get ready, because this is the Black Knight. The monster's gaze shines intensely. Quickly, its attack starts, knocking players down like they're just bowling pins. Sang-hyuk doesn't waste time watching. He grips his battle hammer, Braki, hitting the shield hard. The Black Knight stays tough, and it soon counterattacks the masked man. Sang-hyuk yells to crush it. Then he makes another attack, making the Black Knight irritated. The monster then grabs its 2-pronged weapon and swings it toward the masked man. Sang-hyuk tells the players to back off. He easily jumps, dodging the attack. The tip of the monster's weapon gets stuck in the ground, causing multiple explosions in the soil. Several players get hit by the blasts, which also head towards Sang-hyuk, but he easily dodges them all using dimensional steps. Sang-hyuk aims his hammer as he jumps. The Black Knight only has time to look, then take the heavy blow. The part where it got hit is completely cracked. Sang-hyuk gets ready for another one, hitting the monster with another hammer strike. With the impact, the Black Knight gets thrown back. Sang-hyuk jumps, raising his hammer to keep attacking. Just his stare could wipe it out, but the hammer is enough to get it done. The Black Knight is smashed into pieces, and just like that, Sang-hyuk defeats the first golem. The other masters watch, impressed. Richard doesn't know what to say. Everyone looks at the masked monarch in total silence. Then something catches Sang-hyuk's attention. A window appears, saying he gained 1,200 experience points. To him, the fight was fun and rewarding. Another sound catches his attention. The 2 golems decide to show up. This is going to be really fun for him. That's how Sang-hyuk plans to make the place his main hunting ground.
Our video ends here. If you liked it, leave your like. See you next time. Bye bye.